We could talk under moonlight till dawn. We could stay to watch the sunrise, cancel all our plans. We don't need a reason why we just can't. I wish I could stop time and stay in this moment, never think about going. Won't you stay with me for a little while? Got myself free falling deep into your eyes. You came to me without warning.
Okay, I think we should be good here.
I wish I could stop time and stay in this moment, never think about going. Won't you stay with me for a little while? Stay in this moment, never think about going. Won't you stay with me for a little while?
Okay, let's get the tweets going.
Easy come and easy go. You're an unfading star, a gentle love, the kind that lifts you up, no matter how far apart. I guess you could call it chance, but we know it's more than that. It's like we've always known.
Actually, we're not gonna do tier lists today. Hey, what's up, Royal Rider? Which region? We'll continue a little bit of Japan. Then I wanted to take a look at Thailand. The playoffs just happened. Full Sense won the finals, so either the grand final or maybe the upper final with the Myth. And then we might take a closer look at the ISO games from Korea.
Through each night we'll keep burning bright. I'm so lucky to be loved by you. And come the storm,
Valorant Challengers.
still be right.
VOD Review with JP, TH, and KR.
But we know it's more than that.
YouTube Africa. Links in bio.
It's like I've always dreamed. True harmony, unmistakable, unmistakable.
Change the color on this. Put a link. Okay. Let me change the title. So you know what? I was originally thinking about doing an updated tier list for Pacific, but I think we will do that after Masters. Kind of build it up. Yeah, build it up for stage 1. If I had done it like right after, I think that would have been fine. But Masters is coming up, and then also for Gen G and PRX, I think we'll have some things to take away from Masters as well. So let's change all of these. And before we jump in, before I switch my screen here, let me... check if I have heard back about Masters here. It doesn't look like it. No responses. Well, that's fine. Let's see, where's the Fennel-Verrill game that we were watching? Let's get that going. Man. It's a Monday, all right. Let's see. Calling from YouTube. You think Talon is going to glow up this season or no? Because their banner is fire, but I don't want to buy it if they're going to continue to flop all season. That is one of the most real questions I have ever gotten. It's a legitimate concern. Do I think they're going to glow up? Like, but compared to last year, I think so. I think there's a real big problem if they don't. I mean, at kickoff, I guess it's hard to gauge based with kickoff as the standard for their performance, just because they had a really good showing and then moderate to mediocre showings. I don't think they had any bad showings, but yeah, I think the depth of calling was definitely a little bit lacking. I think the firepower is okay, but obviously not consistent enough that carried them through kickoff. But again, I mean, kickoff was so short, right? And while Talon did play some off season, it's very much a work in progress. But I think they will. I mean, here's the thing: is that most, if not all, people would agree that Jit Boys is really, really good. I think Governor's proven even in Pacific his potential. I know those who have followed him and or just the overall challengers and A scene There were quite a few people who had some faith in him, but I think he's proven that the potential is there. It's a matter of consistency. I think Ban's doing okay in the flex / initiator role. I mean, it's clearly not his strongest suit, but can he grow into it? That's a matter of time. And then Cruz is consistent. And Lenny, listen, I think his IGLing when they were mega prepped against Secret was great, but afterwards was quiet. I'm not gonna say it was bad, but it wasn't like there was nothing to write home about. So that's the biggest thing. It's because the thing is when it comes to calling, like even firepower, etc., like unless you are just miles ahead of everyone in the server, like whether it's on that day or just overall, your individual performance, like the mechanics are also going to be impacted by the calling, right, and the prep. So in that sense, listen, even if they don't have good prep, I don't think they're gonna be like complete bottom of the barrel like they were last year. I don't think so. And if they are, then there's a much bigger problem at hand, in my opinion. But do I think that they'll get to a Masters or a Champions? I think that's really stretching it, to be very honest. Just given how much other teams seem to have grown as well, and where other teams are foundationally, I think Talon's proven that mechanically they have the prowess to get there, but the matter of unlocking it consistently against the other top competition, I don't think is quite proven, despite the small sample size. So, do I think that they'll be contenders for the quote unquote like gatekeeper tier, right? Like a la Team Secret was last year, and I don't know, looking like they might be this year again. Yeah, I think so. I don't think we're gonna look at Talon and be like, yeah, well, it's between them and like whoever for like bottom two. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. But do I think that there is a reasonable sized hope that they will reach a Masters and or Champions? I think that's gonna be tough. And it's not because they're bad. I mean, almost no team is like that in VCT, right? Or if they were, like they've gone through changes where they shouldn't be like that. But it's just the others, especially in the case of Talon. I think it's a case of like the others are just so strong. So am I going to sit here and be like, no, I think if you're a fan of Talon, you should absolutely like be hyped about the potential of going to Masters and Champions. I'm going to be very real and say like, maybe not, but if you're a fan of them, I think there's going to be good matches to look forward to. And I think, if they were to go to a Master Champions, I think it would be a surprise. I think it would be kind of like an upset, but not like a miracle upset, right? Not a go on a run situation, but yeah, but I think they'll be exciting to watch. So last week we got done. Well, we watched most of Viral versus Menno's first map on Split. Let's check out their Sunset, and then maybe we'll check out one or two other matches, maybe with Reject, because they're in the higher seed as well for their playoffs. So is every playoffs formatted like this, by the way? Is that how it's going now? Is that how we're doing? I mean, listen, I know some people are like, they don't like the whole single elim in the first round of playoffs when it's a 6-team thing, but doing the double elim where the first like getting the bye into the upper final like didn't really mean much, and then it's weird. I'm personally a bigger fan of this format. Well, although I think there's two versions of this format, right? I think there's one where they start like this is like they start here, and then it's just a single elim, and then they feed into like 2 matches here. I think there's that format, and then the lower round, versus this where I guess these teams. Well, no, this is actually no. This is very different. Now that I'm looking at it, this is just if you're not top 2, you're in single elim. Whereas VCT playoffs is because it was listed for EMEA, right? Yeah, versus here where everyone's in double elim except for the knockout round. Which, listen, like I get it. Having a double elim bracket with single elim portions feels bad, but like this is, in my head, this is the way for a 6-team bracket. People were complaining that like, wow, it's kind of crazy that you get to playoffs and you're still knocked out after one match. But it's like, I hate this logic, but honestly, at that point, it's just like, well, you better get top 4, right? Because without that, or top 2, rather, I mean. Because without that, it's just like, if there's a bracket here and then these guys are waiting, but then it's just weird. I don't like it. I didn't like I thought last year's playoff format for all the regions was really bad. So I'm kind of surprised that people dislike this so much as a change. But I think this is much more logical. It's much more logical. It puts a lot more stakes. It really feels good that you're top 2, etc., etc. Because last year, the problem basically became the advantage for being the top 2 seed, like getting the initial bye, was actually only valid if you won. Which in theory, yes, I guess you technically should. But right, like you had to like fight for your benefit one more time. Here, let's look at a bracket. 2023. Right? So here, it's like if you're DRX or Paper X, because they were the top 2 seeds of league play, like if you lost, you were basically in the same situation as someone who lost in the upper round. Right? And so, yeah, you could argue this was a situation of, in my head, the top 2 seeds didn't really gain any strong benefit unless they won. Whereas it was just like kind of more grueling for them. But also that's, again, if they lost, right? Like it was such a conditional benefit and advantage versus disadvantage. Which I think feels bad. It feels bad. Because here's the thing, and this is the case that people were saying, well, it was more advantageous if you lost. Not that anyone's going to play to lose, but also it does feel bad that if you win this, you have to play against a much stronger opponent, and then if you lose, you just have to play back-to-back rematches against someone that you beat yesterday, but now you're more fatigued. They had a day to prep, knowing most likely who their opponent was going to be, etc., etc., right? It's just like, it gets really convoluted. So I don't know, people being like, well, it should all be double. It's like, well, it's a 6-team bracket. Like there's no good way to do it. There's no perfect way to do it. But in my head, give a clear benefit that you skip a knockout round, that you start double elim. These guys, I think this is a much better change. I don't know why this was even up for debate, to be quite frank. So that just came to my mind because we were looking at this with it, which this is very different. This is not so much a double elim bracket rather than a, you know, there's a lower bracket start. But anyway, let's look at Varel and Fennel on Sunset. Varel uses Phoenix, so this is a bit of a twist on the Euro rays that we've seen in Pacific. Obviously, Phoenix has been used here and there, especially by Loud on a Sunset, but I don't think we've seen this exact combo where it's single controller and then Sova for the single initiator. Then on the other side, yeah, a bit different as well. Instead of zone controller, you have Sage. So let's play it and see what we find. Varel is on defense. Okay, they force tiles control. Zephyr was holding that with what? Ghost and a cyber cage? No, oh, his trip's over on B. That way they can just ignore B. And he's really just there to just try to delay as they go for the flank. Which is kind of a... It's kind of a crazy spot to be holding with a ghost, I think, but... They're quick. They don't really have any idea about Dariali. But at this point, it's been so long that they know that there can be a wraparound. Just so happens that Dariali's the one that gets the kill. This is an interesting turn of events where they had to... Zenfree? I mean, that got way dicier than I thought it was going to for either team, quite frankly. Tech pause. Man, we've had just like a lot of tech pauses across the board this year. Not a big one. NBD. 3 rifles for Fennel. Okay, so they fight for a main control first, orb control, then they'll take the easier mid control, put up the wall. Interesting that they just didn't push that at all. I mean, staying grouped I think is fine. They know that there's a push out of A because the trip just got broken. Okay, I see. Okay, now I see. Because they want to just defend from the other side of the map. Okay. Because they had trips and cam on the other side, on the attacker side. Taking shots. I mean, that's very much a anti-eco round, though, that they play. The way they played it. Obviously, it was literally an anti-eco round, but that's what I mean, is the way they're playing it. Cam just to watch for a push out. Where was that thrown? Oh, against the wall. Okay. I think the ideal scenario there is that you're breaking both, but this time it's actually deep into the actual choke point, so... Okay, so they're cutting off backup one way or the other every time. Varel makes a decent adjustment. This is already bad though for where we're at. Now you know where he's at. He's just gonna turn it. Oh my. So, okay, where does this all go wrong? I think up to this point is fine. For either team. I mean, Fennel's kind of just working with the most that they have. So you set up the one way. You're gonna peek out before the paranoia comes and gets you. The thing is yeah, you're already kind of you're kind of torn on having to defend market in both directions. But I don't know if Bangnan fighting there was necessarily the best route. Because at that point, as soon as you hear the haunt, like what ideally should have happened is Black Wiz can has a lot more room to work with, right? Whether they come in through A main, whether, you know, if it's a fake on B, you can try to exit this way, you can shadow step that way, depending on the util and how you're pushed, you can walk around this way. Or if they're coming around, like if Zenfree leaves, you can actually just push out towards your own one way and try to smoke that off as well, or Paranoia even out, just to be safe. So the ideal scenario here would have been as soon as the haunt's used. I mean, Zenfree waits, you know, in case it's a fake and there's another push out. So like that's fine. But the thing is regardless of Pangnan dying or not, I think LOB filling the site immediately and kind of trusting that for Zenfree would have been the best decision. They are eventually going in that. It just seems like it gets delayed just enough that they actually lose control of backside. Zephyr also pushes out here. Going into the cyber cage, which I get it, but that's very much a like the going into the cyber cage there is very much a I'm gonna solo queue hero this type of play in my opinion. Especially if like if you still had Bangnan here, then sure, going into the cyber cage trying to get one more kill while LOB fills the site again, that would have been something. But with Bangnan dead, I mean the cyber cage buys you just enough time that you can set up another, whether it's you know, LOB comes here and you go here, or whether it's LOB watches that side again and you stay here. Like there's ways to just hold on to that longer. But it does seem like they kind of all make their own decisions. I guess Zenfree and Blackwiz's movement overall is okay. But yeah, so then what happens is you're always actually somehow, even though you shouldn't have been, you end up always being outnumbered and pushed in backside, and you lose backside, so that gets tough. Indonesia is already done with group stage if you want to watch. We might get around to it. There's just a lot of regions to watch. But most of them should be wrapping up with the group stage. I think actually maybe all? Except for Korea? After this week? But either way, they win it, and they're just going to stick with the hero rifle, because otherwise you're going to get screwed. So Zenfree takes it on himself to push tiles. And he tries to go for a second kill. Which is, I mean, listen, you were already pushed out that far. They're doing the best they can. Yeah, no, thanks for letting me know, though. Appreciate it. It's just, yeah, all the Challenger Leagues, there's like so much. It's crazy. So, it seems the way that Vero wants to use Phoenix is to help combat mid as the defenders. As long as you don't get picked off immediately off the bat, you're looking at angles that you can really abuse for your flash. Curveball, there we go. For a second I was blanking out on what Phoenix's flash was. Oh, that haunt is huge. Oh, that thing is massive. Okay, so they buy time with Cyber Cage and Slow Orb. Oh, he holds it. He holds it until the Paranoid comes out, and then the Recon as well. And you still had CLZ in there alongside Ciota. And then the haunt just lands right on top of Ciota as well, so that they would have to shoot right above it. It's kind of big. So with the wall, with the orbs, the slow orbs, I mean, you can't let this funnel get into the site without using much utility. You have to make sure that they're using a lot. That's one prowler, one slow orb. You use the paranoia, that way if they want to play it safe, and the smoke, that way if they want to play it safe, they got to use a bit more to get in. So they use a second prowler, but you die there. Now the wall goes back up. He's still hidden, but just a sheriff. And T on that. My nose is itchy. Well, it's not itchy. It's there's like I feel like there's like a feather inside my nose. It's like tickling it. Dude, Fennel's gonna push up mid with their attack operator. It's crazy that they're sending the operator to clear every single one of these angles. It's also, yeah, so it's also kind of unfortunate that Veryl has this tripwire. Whenever they're not pushing out, they have this tripwire, which is, I mean, that's fine. But like they're so hungry for contact that they're just, this is really just like a, well, we'll know when we know. And once it gets broken, I mean, no one can delay them any further. So once it gets broken, all you can do is push out forward. But you don't really know how many people are on the other side. Like, you don't know if this is a one-person lurk, etc., etc. You don't have any of that information if we watch this round here. So Fennel gets initial contact right off the bat. What do they use here? They just use a prowler. Oh, they don't even get contact. They just send it in. Make sure that you have to. They make it look like it's a rush for B, and then they're gonna spend the entire round. They heard that the door was closed, so they know that it's even safer to walk up mid. Right, you still have your trip on A. There's a one-way there anyway, so you're not getting any more information unless you're swinging out altogether. You only shoot one gun, and you use the wall. Now, the thing about this, even further, is the fact that they used their walls in the earlier couple rounds 2 times in a row in mid, and they didn't actually end up going mid. So, at this point, Veryl, their only choices are okay, well, we have like no idea how many people are here. We also have no idea how many people are here, but we were already kind of positioned for trap plays on both sides, right? They were positioned for the curveball here and the paranoia here. So unless we're going to like scramble to all come and pinch, which is going to take a little while, and you're probably going to have to use utils to be safe, because again, you don't know how many people are there. Granted, I guess for the B side, you do know because the door was closed. You're kind of safe up to this point, but you're just going to push out, right, to like get some information. But then the same thing has to be done on A, because these guys can't come help here. So it's only a 2-man setup on A anyway. So they've already kind of given up that priority. Meanwhile, Dariali's still lurking in tiles. If you look at the minimap, yeah, see on the camera, they're constantly having someone cover their back as well. Fennel's playing this very well. So Veryl basically just sends Zenfrey out on a mission to get info with his ultimate, and he sees nothing. And then they get picked off in A. But they feel safe kind of doing that because they hear the ult push out from the other side as well. Dariali hears all that. I want to see the future rounds, because it starts to feel that at a certain point, Veryl gets very concerned with how they want to play their own comp. that they're letting so much free space be taken by Fennel.
ペレタ1本持ち帰ったとはいえ、このペレタで起点を作るのはカバー力の手厚いフェンネル相手には苦しいですよ。
バンナンのポジションはマーケットになりそうですか
タイ
ね。
ル展開、そして中央を全風が詰めることによって、もちろんエリアは自分たちの体で確保してしまおうという動きになります。
さあ、B メイン、早々にショート突っ込んできた。シーズで入り込みもチェックして。
Some of the op, but they're just gonna leave it for Dariali. So this time it's a fast hit. Also knowing that they don't have good weaponry, so you're just trying to go in and swarm him. Okay, the wall makes the entrance here a little bit trickier, a lot easier to set up for. Bangnan gets 4 though on that entry. So they have the smoke. So they choose to fill the site. Oh, but it's... Oh, he gets the double with the showstopper. He gets a double? They're so far apart. Wow. Good retake with the showstopper. Okay. Same prowler, same smoke on B. It's kind of the default start here. Send free. They've never quite cleared this. I mean, yeah, so he had to use all of his utility just to stay alive, though. So you need backup to show up. Now, they don't quite know if he's left or not, but at this point, surely they check it, and that they do. Now you can go wherever you want as Fennel.
ギリギリ展開はできてましたかね。あまりにも早すぎてちょっと見えづらかった。ただこれサイトなんか X で固めれてますからね。B 面前目のワイヤーが効いてます。
さあ、A 中になだれ込む形を取っているフェンネル。4v3。
バレル形はいいですよ。
サイドもチェック。そして、一人見えた。ブラックミス落とす。しかし、ローブが持っている。サーブ立ち回りきれない。
The smoke just to cover that corner behind Jen in the boxes.
しかもこの打った瞬間に飛び出すっていうのも出てきますね。
さあ、クルーズがしっかりとゼファーを落として、これでフェンネル。自分たちのペースにまた引っ込みます。7対2。
いや、一時はこの中央でアドバンテージを得はしたんですけれども、どうしてもダークカバーによってこの全空の位置が孤立してしまいましたね。
Well, did you partake in the Plat Chat top 10 players for Madrid list? I did. But if you're about to ask me exactly what my personal rankings were, I don't remember the exact order. I really should start screenshotting these before I submit them. But I can tell you which players I had on there. Most of them. Because there's a couple that I was torn. Like I had Chichu, but I didn't have Kong Kong. I did not have something. I had Mind Freak. I think Mind Freak was the only Paper X player I had. Chichu was the only EDG player I had. I had nobody from FPX. I had less from Loud. I can't remember if I put in another from Loud, though. I was very torn between quite a few. I had less at number 1. That I remember. I think I had less Zekken texture. That was my top 3, I think. I think I had less Zekken texture. It's torn between quite a few, but like part of me, for a brief second, I thought about putting Miniboo into like the top 3, and then I was like, I don't know. I feel like that's real recency bias. Like not to take away from his recent performance, but just like top 3 is a very high list. Where was 10s? I want to say I had 10s at 5th. I feel like I had 10s in top 5 as well, 4th or 5th, but I can't remember. Because I think I had Miniboo and Narrate both on there too, and now I don't know. Maybe Narrate was 6th, something like that. Well, yeah, I was actually surprised that not a lot of people put less, or not as many. But at the same time, Zekken being voted eventually number 1, like overall average number 1, I mean, that's not surprising either. It's just, but that's definitely a situation of like, it's hard. It depends on how you look at it, right? Because at the end of the day, this list is specifically for Masters going into Masters Madrid. So obviously, the most recent performances should be rated highest. But then for a player like Les, you just can't ignore the fact that like he is consistently like doing it, right? So did Charon make it? I do not believe I put Charon on there. I had considered it, but I do not believe I put him on there. I might have actually put Meteor on there. The thing is I think Charon, listen, Charon did great. Charon had great moments, and I mean, listen, we voted for him as the MVP for the finals at Pacific Kickoff. I voted for him there as well. I thought he performed exceptionally well. I think he really helped secure the victory in the last match. But would I rate him top 10? No. Would I rate him even top 3 in the team? I don't think I would. I think I would rate Texture and Meteor higher. And that's not to say that I don't think he can get there. I think he's proven that he can. But yeah, it's just like, listen, Charon's hype is because he's new, right? The fact that he's new, has ridiculous aim, but also like, especially as the fact that he grew so quickly as the tournament went on, and he was able to make some really solid decisions on like when to pick fights versus when to not. To me, that was the biggest thing, because like after a certain point, you know, he proved it at Convergence, and after the first couple matches, like we knew this guy was cracked in terms of aim. Like aim duels, right? We knew he would consistently win his 1v1s. We knew he could fairly consistently win his 1v2s as well. So then, you know, now and then he gets like the 3Ks, things like that. Like that's cool, but it's also exceptionally cooler because he's new, and that's fine. But there's always like, we should always remember that I'm not trying to say the hype wasn't deserved, but the hype was also existent because he's new, right? If he had been playing since the very first day of Valorant, then would it have been as hype? No, I mean, it still would have been a highlight, but we would have been like, damn, like this dude is gonna take over the world. Like we won't be seeing that, right? Because, well, you've been doing it for 4 years and you haven't. So obviously there's a caveat there. Again, not saying that he can't. It's just that like it's a very small sample size, and that's what's impressive about it. But yeah, therefore I would rate like Meteor and Texture higher. Now, the reason I'll give Charon a lot of props is because, dude, what a setup from Fennel. A wall and B and just push out from A. But what I will give a lot of credit to for Charon is the fact that he started to really showcase that he had a good understanding of when to stay and fight versus when to not. You know, when to rotate for backup versus when to challenge a 1v1. Like things like that. Which I think that's very hard to learn, especially for a cracked aimer who's new, because you're kind of used to just saying like, well, I can take these fights and win. And you're not really used to thinking about the overall team objective. So he started showing that a lot more like as the maps went on. So I think he will grow into a great player. But putting him in top 10 out of the 40 to 50 players at Masters Madrid, to me that's crazy. Granted, Miniboo also, you know, a lot of it is the explosion he had onto the scene, I guess. But he was tasked with, I don't know, you know, he was playing Duelist, and to me, like, he was very clearly so much of the reason that they had won so many of their games. So wasn't Boo higher rated than Miniboo? Wait, oh, in terms of plat chat, or you mean just on like rating sites like VLR and Run It Back? You think Planchette overrated Carmine Corp? The thing is so I had a lot of trouble with this because I gave, obviously, I put Narrate in my top 10, but at the same time, I don't think I had a single Carmine Corp player in my top 5, just because, yeah, to me, they won because their team played so well. Again, not to say, obviously, you have to hit your shots and you have to do your job. So I'm not saying like the individuals are bad. I'm just saying they won because the sum of their parts were so much greater than the parts individually. And that's impressive. That's a lot of props to the entire team. Not many players and rosters can say they can do that. But, you know,
さあメインは足見えたか打ち込んでくる
it's a case of like I can't really look at the team and be like, well, this player is why they won. I look at the team and I say, well, this team is because this team won because of this team.
さあ B メインにもう導かれているようなそんな配置になっています
Boo was higher rated in terms of ACS. Oh, I mean, listen, ACS is a great snapshot,
さあカメラにスタート
but it does not tell the whole story. Also, for me specifically, like I kind of just like to and this could be a wrong way to do it, or not wrong, but this could skew things a bit for sure.
メイン側の射線を潰せ少人数戦
Dude, I'm not really seeing the Phoenix here for Vero. Though part of it, I think, is because
12対4
the defense was like so heavily they just wanted to do trap plays, and Fennel was like, oh, well, I guess we'll just play macro, and it just never happened. But yeah, but for me,
これでマッチポイント
I'm trying to look at overall impact that player has. Like, how much do they actually contribute to the win? Which, again, is going to be a very subjective matter. There are ways to try to do it in a numerical fashion, and ACS would be one of them.
まず中央からマーケットの取り返し挟み込み狙うでしょうか。ついてればそうなんですよね。
そこでマーケット前折り返しに図りますがゼファーの射線ここはケアできない
But I think there are certain things in the game where it will give you like ACS, but to me it didn't really impact their win or loss.
情報を与えずに自分たちが広いエリアを確保することに成功していました。ただやっぱりこの序盤からアビリティでエリアコントロールを取っているフェンネルの動きはかなりプレッシャーになりますね。
そうですね
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why if
さあ今回はフェンネル調整倍
you know you can, I think the best way to do top 10 lists is either get as many opinions as you can, as Plat Chat is doing, you know, more regularly, or it's just the one individual and you listen to their thoughts, right? And then you get an idea of, oh, I see why this person rated them that way. If you only have like 2-3 people joining together, or someone just puts out a list without much explanation, then I think it's really bad, because it's like there's so many different ways you can look at it and so many things to consider, and quite frankly, like not a single one of us are watching every single match with the same focus, you know, at the same, you know, giving it the same exact time for analysis, things like that. So it's tough.
特にショーストッパーハンターズビリで序盤のエリア取りを一気に返されてしまうような可能性があるんで、はい、フェンネルとしてもここは初動から大胆にもうどう出してというよりもラウンド中盤以降のエリア取りを
Yeah, there's definitely some cool ways to do it. So for instance, we had it at Pacific where do I want to look at this? We had it during Challengers 2 years ago as well, before VCT. But for those who watched it, you'll know what I'm about to bring up here. I think we showed it during, I think.
Better than most. All righty, well here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Strap yourselves in.
No, calm down, Seth. We're not going to watch the match here. We showed it during the desk segment somewhere. Well, okay, so there's two things that we did during VCT Pacific, and this is something that they had tried at Korea Challengers 2 years ago as well. The guy who came up with this algorithm was brought back in this year to try to do it again with a couple of changes. But basically, there's two things. First of all, that we did power rankings, right? And the power rankings, for anyone who forgot it, this is going to be my quick tutorial. We'll probably cover it again before VCT Pacific kicks off. But here's how it goes. Power rankings are off of 5 stats. Okay, you have basically you have your KD, you have your damage per round, you have your headshot, you have your kills per round. Now, depending on the role and if we're doing role comparisons or not, they change the stats as well depending on the role they play. For this, okay, this one's actually a bad idea, because this one they're showing the overall thing because it's just between Obscured and Forsaken. Oh, we didn't do it for this match. Hold on. I'm going to find you a better example here. Oh, they started just doing this just for the playoffs. Okay. So anyway, it's based off 5 stats. We'll just go with this, right? Because I think they might change it for split 1, because there was a question because the headshot percentage is such a silly value. But Anyway, it's based on 5 stats: your overall KD, your kills per round, your damage per round, and then your rating, which is, so this is the part that the casters all take part in, right? Every person who's on the broadcast on both the Korean and English side that day will submit their votes between a rating of 1 through 10, and that gets averaged. Now, the overall power ranking is now a culmination of all of these points and then averaged out, put in relativity to people in their same role. So that's one thing that we did to try to just give like an overall snapshot of where the players sit, right? So the stats will tell a pretty good part of the story, but then every caster is going to look at things a little different. Some people will value certain things more than others, and that's where the rating comes into play as well. So maybe if someone's just like stat padding, but they're not really winning, like we're not really rating them too highly, things like that. So that's one way we did it. And then there's another way where I don't know if we actually showed it during this matchup. Here we go. Then there's win contribution rate, which is a slight variance on, I don't know the actual full algorithm, but anyway, it's a slight variation on how they're using the algorithm, where they take all the different kill related stats, right? So they're taking assists, kills, like damage per round, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they calculate it per round, like how much is each person contributing. I believe deaths go in there as well. And so every team, you then divvy up how much did you contribute out of 100. So in theory, the reason this is important, and what I'm about to say is very important, in theory, a player on a team could have a -%, right? You could literally be, statistically, you could be losing your team rounds, but maybe someone else is doing 110%, right? And that covers it up. Things like that, right? So this is more to give us a look on, okay, just a quick, obviously we're not seeing all, like every single stat on what matters here, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe kills, deaths, assists all go in. I believe plants and diffuses go in. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think ACS goes in, but I think damage per round goes in as well. But there's a whole algorithm, which again, I do not know the actual details to, but it's basically a bunch of kill related stats that go in, and then they run it through their little system every round, and then you get an average of how much did they actually contribute. So the idea here being that for a very, very strong team, you want like as close to a pentagon as possible, right? Like you want people to basically all be contributing a fair bit amount. Obviously, you're going to have some differences, but like this is a fairly even spread, right? Snacks also IGLing and playing that initiator. Kang's a little bit lower. The Sentinel still having a decent share, but you've got Buzz and then Maka, who's always been like a really strong anchor, and he's been doing a lot of, he gets a lot of clutches, things like that, et cetera, et cetera. So you get a good idea. But some teams you'll see like a really skewed pentagon where it's like this, right? And it's like, okay, well, these two, that's when you know, okay, these two guys are like hard carrying this team. Maybe they're being set up for it, but they are hard carrying. And quite frankly, if they're being set up for it a lot with really good assists, etc., it probably shouldn't be this skewed. So there's two ways to look at that. So there are very interesting ways to use stats to get a decent idea. But the thing is there's never really any good answer, right? So because there's always going to be intangible things that don't really get portrayed into a stat. So for instance, like another good example of why it can't be quite perfectly done, but I just wanted to show you that there's something similar that they've been doing in VCT Pacific, and I believe the goal is to try to do this for the whole year. I don't know if they're going to continue it in the same way for stage 1, because this was already a bit of an upgraded version from 2 years ago. But going back to this match, so for instance, if we look at the minimap, for instance, let's say your controller puts up a smoke here, right? Like you push here and then you put up a smoke here. And then you eventually just rotate through market to B. This smoke doesn't actually get you any assists, right? It's not going to get you any assists. But did it buy a lot of time? Did it draw out maybe flashes and etc. back towards mid? Well, then I would say that it provided some good value, right? But it will never, ever be shown in any stat because it didn't actually lead to anything in terms of actual kills, etc. So there's multiple ways to look at it. But at the end of the day, obviously, if you try to put in as many of the stats as possible and you're trying to weigh it based on what you think has more impact versus not, like kills, assists, et cetera, then there is a decent way to look at it. And I think, again, the more different algorithms we have, the better we'll get a good idea. But I think these are always going to be snapshots, like overall tiers, right? Of, oh, like these people are really contributing a lot versus these people really aren't. Whereas the individual rankings they're always going to differ. And I think at the end of the day, the best way to do it is to add stats plus opinion, right? Of like a lot of people. Yeah. So I know for a fact, I will say this, I know for a fact during Pacific Kickoff, there were some matches where one of the players had like ratings that spanned from, I believe, like 2 to 10 among the casters. Like some people gave that player a 10 and some people gave them like 2s and 4s. Right? So it's like, wow. No matter what their stats were, people were really looking at this very differently. So there's definitely very, very different ways to look at things in game. But yeah, I think it's always cool because for people who come up with like different algorithms and ways to calculate these, it's always interesting to see how they go about it. And it does help. Because even for me, sometimes I'll look at those algorithms or, you know, stats that people put out, and, you know, we have a bunch of great data-driven analysts in the Valorant scene where they'll put out like various graphs of, well, this is how it looks for like their kills after the first kill, and et cetera, et cetera. And while that's not the Bible for any team, sometimes I look at that and I'm like, oh, I never really did consider that this could actually be impacting them more than I thought. So it's always nice. I always appreciate it. I'm always a big fan. Dude, my phone is popping off today with like all sorts of spam. Is this the last round? Apparently not. Dude, Fennel is struggling. It seems like both teams are very, very obsessed with mid on defense, which is not common. Now they're back on sheriffs. I have so much respect for analytic models because I think they're so cool, but I don't have the background and patience to like come up with it. I love looking at it, and I don't feel that I anytime have too much trouble understanding a lot of different analytic models, but just like the background and patience needed to actually invent something like that to a point where you feel confident that it's like worth sharing with other people. To me, that's crazy impressive. And I think it requires a lot of good foundational education, like revolving around stats, etc., and numbers. I used to be a huge math nerd, but never really got into stats. And when I was like much younger, you know, as a teen, I used to be like stats, like, whatever. It's pretty simple. But then the more I learned just overall math and numbers, I was like, actually, like stats, like learning how to handle stats is a whole different ball game. And I respect it a ton. GG. Does oh no, I didn't mean to skip forward like that, but hold on, let's turn off all these other ones that I opened up. Does Verily use that for all their games? They do. In fact, that was the only time they lost. They used it against Reject again? What did Reject use? They 2-0'd Reject? What? Oh, Reject 2-0'd Fennel. Dude, what is going on in Japan? What does Reject play? Oh, well, that would be because... well, maybe it's because Reject is also playing the same comp. Yeah, it's literally a circle. What is going on? What? Hold on. I want to watch one of these. Should we... No, let's watch Reject versus Fennel, because that rematch is going to happen like now, which is also crazy that they happen to be the last match that they played, and then they're going to be the upper final. Day after tomorrow. That's crazy. They played Icebox and Breeze. Oh, dude, they stomped on him on Icebox. Granted, the comp's not great for Fennel, in my opinion. Oh, and then Fennel plays Reyna? What is going on? Wait, I feel like did I ever watch a game of their Reyna? No, because that's the only time they played it, and then they lost. In fact, they had a perfectly normal composition during the qualifiers, stomped their opponent, and then they were like, nah. Okay, we're watching this. We're going to try to figure out, we're going to watch both these matches. We're going to try to figure out if Fennel changed their Breeze comp because they thought it was better, or if it's the classic case of, we didn't feel good about our other comp that everyone else uses, so we just used the Reyna. I'm going to be very upset if it's the latter. Listen, I'm all for chaos, but like... a lot of people make fun of me. They're like, oh, you just want chaotic things. Like, you just want whimsy in your games. And I'm like, no, I do like new things and I like new attempts, but at least I want to... It can fail, too. You could get 13-0'd as long as I see a reason for why you did it. I will commend it and I will enjoy it. But the moment it looks like... You didn't actually think about this at all, did you? Like, you just thought you were going to win with your aim, didn't you? Then I'm like, well, that's not fun. AKA anybody who brings out Reyna just slotted in for their flash initiator on Icebox. I'm like, have we really thought this through? Yeah, like when Paper X brought out the Reyna on Ascent last year, I was like, oh. And Bind, I'm like, oh. I kind of see it. Granted, on Bind, it was a bit more based on aim. On an Ascent, it had some clear reasoning to it. I mean, at the end of the day, Reyna's an agent where it's like, well, if you don't get the kill, it doesn't matter anyway. So, yes, you do have to get good kills. But, you know, you're like setting up for it rather than, all right, Reyna, do your thing. Go kill. Oh, I've read about that. I didn't watch a single thing of it, but I read about it. I'm so scared. The PDF versus Disguised. I saw the Reddit threads pop up and I was like, oh no. And then I heard that there were 4 duelists and I was like, oh no. So now you're just on an eco. A very... Huh. Hold on. You're gonna use your high tide here to get into 2 and not your cascade?
金上がりとは思えないハルスの本当に度胸と冷静な動きですよね。そこでね、
はい。
見て上に上がっていく。
What?
本当にこのメインステージで成長しましたよね。
Like, why though?
さらにさあ、そしてペンデルとしてはお得意の3つ目ですね。キッチンが入ってきます。
また赤目。
そのコアカメクルーズを抑えます。これによって
I mean, listen, they're just gonna... I guess we'll never find out. Like, I wonder where those cascades were going to be used if you did get in. You know what it is? I can see why. It's because they never actually meant to use their cascade. You buy it, and if you are winning like 5v3, then you use it in the post plan. But if not, don't use the creds. Just use the high tide, see if we can get in, overpower with numbers. That's the idea. Had to have been. Can't really see a great way to use the cascades once you're in kitchen. But that's fine. I'm actually totally fine with that. I'm fine with buying ahead and then using it if it really looks like you could win, versus just saving it over for the next round where you'll have a buy. It's better that than like buying a sheriff and then not doing anything with it. Oh, Fennel loves mid. Except they couldn't get that shot, which is very unfortunate. Now Dariali's all lonely. I wonder how much Sky we're gonna see at Madrid. I feel like Sky probably still has a bit more value than it seems. Oh man, Dariali, the timings. Very good. Very good internal clock. I feel like Sky probably has more value than it seems in her pick rate, but curious. It's one of those things where it's like, I think her kit is still fine, but it was just so good before that in relativity it feels really bad. Like, you probably feel this if you've ever played Sky regularly in solo queue. It's just like, you feel like you could do any, like you could pick Sky in solo queue and you could do no wrong. Like, you could always be providing value one way or another. And now it's like, well, not so much. Oh, you're a little stuck, Fennel. Man, I haven't played Valorant in a little bit, actually. Dizzy off 0 point. Little greedy, but... Man, what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing that is allowing every team in Asia that plays Gecko on Icebox make Gecko push out? I've been trying to figure this out for the longest time. I mean, granted, okay, in this case, I mean, I don't blame it entirely, because if you have the Jet on the other side to try to gain some control of it, I mean, sure. At that point, like, if you still wanted to push out of A, I guess it's your Gecko. The only thing I can think of is, obviously, your skills are on a 10-second refresh, so you can hold on to whatever forward position you've gone out a bit more consistently than, say, KO. Or maybe even a Killjoy, depending on the setup, right? Depending on the map and whatnot. I can see that, but it's like here on A, I mean, where are you really going to consistently throw your Dizzy and not get picked off if someone's just waiting for it to fall back down? Right? Like, what? Like, at the end of the... I see it so often that I have to be wrong, but I don't get it. I see it so often that my thought that it just feels really bad has to be wrong. But I don't know. I mean, the simplest answer is just like, well, you kind of have to do that regardless of who it is on Icebox. Which, okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe. And post plants and whatnot, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and watch the RQ games again at some point. Because Flips was doing this a lot. But then I realized it wasn't just Flips. Granted, Genji wasn't. But I mean, they had Texture always doing it, so. And Lakia now and then would be the one that stayed.
しっかりうまくエリアキープしてるだろう。一人狙いに行ったんですが。さあ、この角度はワンウェイなり、ゴーが上がってますね。倒されます。面白いポジションです。しっかり。ツーヘッドショット。
That was with a Guardian? Jeez. Felt like a Vandal in 2 times speed.
注目はゴンのパラノイア。はい。遅延としてはそこしかありません。あとコードはどうするか手前いいですか。そこを落としたらギャンピンです。ワンビーツ。ちょっとステップ。ウィントンで。おお、よく反応した。ここを取ってれば 1v1 というシーン。ギャンピン打ち負けませんでした。
Huh, Gecko. Now it's on my mind. Oh, this is cute. Yeah, also, you're right, Viperless. Didn't really mention that either. I mean, overall, I'm just not really a big fan of the Fennel comp, but I mean, I'm actually kind of okay with Omen as a second controller on Icebox. I've always thought that it had just enough value that it can work as a niche pick. But because of that, they're really focusing on mid, which they can kind of do with the Omen as well. But, well, this didn't really work out so well. But they also just don't have much of a way. The thing is to make that mid control work, they kind of have to commit 4 people to it almost every time, which means you can't really pinch onto the site. And at that point, I mean, we've seen it how many times now where they're just all getting stuck here. And it takes so much and so long for them to actually get into the site. Preparing for the inevitable pre-juice. They're like, one day we'll be ahead. Then everyone will see. But the thing is, your opponent is playing Viper. So it's just going to be different anyway. Oh, here we go again. Where have we seen this before? Surely Reject won't see it coming. They saw it coming. Except they didn't see that coming. Holy cow, he can actually clutch this. Dude, what just happened to your... What? Dude, where did you... Oh. Dude, why did I not see that on the minimap before? I couldn't find the red line. I was like, where did his high tide go?
フルズのkillingに驚かされましたけども、やっぱりね、今、フェンネル側が悩ましいのはどこに行っても赤目がいる。ミッド抜けようが B メイン行こうがキッチン抜けようが赤目が待ってる。で、シンプルに A 行こうとするとどうしてもね、無駄の0ポイントだったり、ダブルイニシエーター控えてますから。さあ、エコラウンドを終えて、キッチンへのラッシュ。混戦に持ち込むことができませんでした。フェンネルはバイランドです。多分 B メインを取るからスタートしようという動きに切り替えましたね。さあ、0ポイント、このトレイルブレザーキャンセル。こうなると、この A とか B とかのトレイルブレザー消されますね。イエロー奥、なんならこのイエローの手前、コンテナ付近の。
I mean, the Cypher, I'm fine with. Again, the Omen I'm okay with. And here's the thing, in some weird theoretical world, you're gonna, at some point, if you think too much about this, you probably start thinking that Harbor is gonna be better than Viper if you already have an Omen. Because with Viper, like once you put down the screen, it's just stuck there. So yeah, you could think that. And then Harbor still lets you like force the plant and the defuse. But that's really all you're getting with Harbor. Whereas Viper, the cloud for mid control, on and off and on and off. The sneak bites to push them back or delay.
なのでここから一度止まる動き。
さあクルーズのアルティメットは A ですね。はい。
でもブライアンもいいですね。スラッシュあるんでこれ A マイナーで抑えるだけでいて楽になりますよ。
さあ一旦ブライアンは味方待つんです。
Right, it's like you could have still done this mid control with a poison cloud. Like it's and an omen. Like it's still doable.
そしてブライアン前に動きます。ウィングも流して。その先はショーター待ってました。オペレーターの勝負。ここはいけません。最後は回ってきている。捉えてきました。
ラウンド何をよ。いやでも一番おっと思ったのが、スポン側の抜ける
Not sure.
あれゴンがダーカまで隠してそこからエクスディルがヘブに対して射線通してたんですよ。
ああなるほど。
それが正直一番しんどかったなって。はいここです。この射線でいいとしない射線なんですよ。これエクスディルの3キルって。それゴンが作ったんですよね。はあ。しかもゴンはエーサー近くいませんでしたからね。右にいましたね。そこから後ろから味方のカバーという。やばい。いい演技取れましたね。はい。中のダーカバー、それを抜けようという赤身に対してトレイルブレイザー抜けれませんでした。テールウィンドを使って引いていく。追いかけるクルーズ強気にプッシュします。その間本命は A です。
Wow, we're really going for this kitchen control. But hey, this time, it actually provides value because it's a fake. Because they've been doing this. Now they're all concerned that it's a 5-man stack in mid, and this time it wasn't. Wow, and he still lives. So now they have to be concerned about it.
これクルーズいるんでちょっと中央警戒強めに取るしかないですよね。
どこに行ったクルーズ？
いやクルーズ一人で何人するんだこれ。
ハーバーはどこに行った？ハーバーがいない。
いやショートも聞こえますね。
すべて情報を味方にそのタイミングでパラノイア上から後ろからクルーズちょいこトレーラー過ぎます。2対3。
でも最初から入ってない。
あっともう一人しかもワンツー逃しません。
時間ギリギリではあるもの。
リテイク成功はリジェクトです。ヒヤッとしたシーンが多かったんですが中でのファイトを勝ち切りました。さあこの相手の動きどう攻めてくるかというイメージ、そして実際にやってくること、非常に情報処理が難しいんですけども、リジェクトしっかり落ち着いて対処しますね。
そうですね、全体的に前目の配置でキルを取るとかではなく、しっかりと引いた配置からもう囲い込むような動きで、時間がかかっても確実に取っていこうという動きが目立ちますね。
They're gonna go for a mid high tide again? No? Cascade onto A.
前来ますね。
Wow, I mean that's Akame just having a heads up play there. The cascades have been used before. So now they're just cutting sound. Oh, Siota died in that. I didn't realize. Well, surely this ends. Yep. This time it's a fake again. Reject is kind of wary of it being a fake again. They do have to worry about kitchen though. We saw him. Time though. Such is doing his best, yep, to isolate 1v1s. I mean, 5? It's more than I would have actually thought. But I think that's partly Reject also not going with a lot of set retakes, which I think they could have done with the double flashes. What a setup in mid though. You just have to accept it. You just have to accept it and die. They did push out and get... Okay. Gone. Oh, Reject reads the situation very well off of that initial kill. They push out the one guy, they chase him through, they take him out. Holding back, guiding light to spot. So they've decided MTA. Looks like they're gonna flood it. Go, go, go. Except there is a wingman on the other side, so you're not ahead in numbers. It's the most you're gonna get. Oh,
さ
he
あ2-1に入ってフェンネル
he double tapped
ス
it.
パイカーまで取ってクリアリングしていましたさあ2-1に入ってフェンネル
Oh,
横入します XD 応募回収して引きず捉えた若手です
一回ちょっとオールタッチしてがありましたからね。
さあこれでフェンネルの守りの形が崩れます
3ラウンド目にしてもったいない加速だったり。
no reason for Reject to rush here.
リジェクトここはゆっくりと展開します
So Fennel just ditches B. They've already made their choice. They're wary of a rotate in mid. But they want to make sure because the initial forces are here, they're ready to flood it immediately.
もう B をほぼほぼもう捨ててますねここはもうリ
Now again, there is a wingman. They have to account for that. So Reject isn't going to be down in numbers, but
さあこれで A のセットが分かります
okay, high tide.
ドラビーククルズフライを落とすことに成功箱裏はどうだカプセルタイム
The flashes are so good. Allows Reject to get in.
ハイタイド手前を切って加精度なし前方に行くそこをゴンが赤目を落として両ウィングパルスイッチを上がります会場を鳴らして相手のピンクを待って
Gotta make up your mind here.
1P ないですね。加えて一つ会場が止まりますね。
さあメイトロ
Unfortunate.
引く判断ですクルズ
Oh no.
リジェクトスパイクの成功です10対5
サイト裏でしっかりと耐える動きが取れていたんですけれども、エロが上がってくる選手とちょっと挟み込みが行われてしまいましたね。
うん
さあとにかくこの A サイト側のセットが課題に
Now,
なっ
what
て
do
い
you
るというか
discuss here after Fennel?
目の情報もあまりないという
かけているところ。
いいで車線を通すオペレーター A からの車線を通すオペレーターこの辺りを早めに出したいところで先に赤目がアウト相手が調整のラウンドということもありアウトを出しますフェンネルのタイムアウトを終えた16ラウンド目フェンネル配置としては2-2
Okay, they're just gonna group and push out. Of course, it's the Vandal that gets picked off first. That's the round. Okay. So Reject can just constantly... The thing is Reject feels fairly comfortable pushing them back in with the Gecko util and the double flashes on A. So they can stick with this default screen on B. And then they can always send the wingman in to plant and go from there. They're gonna wait for the Seekers, but it takes a little too much time. How does this happen? The initial kill comes in. Oh. Oh, he peeks back. But Shota was kind of creeping up the entire time. Gone with a triple.
高い位置からの勝負でした。
さあ、低いところはオペレーターでロックしてますからね、ここはもう完熟でしょう。
さあ、もうどうすることもできません。パーフェクトでラウンドを終えたフェンネルです。11対6。
かなり早いタイミングでのシーカーのプランでもう B 行くしかないよねと。
サポートしました、クルズ。
Okay.
車線を通す視界が悪かったと思います。さまず早めにビヨンド取ります。コンテナを取って赤目が進行
So now Reject just goes for a rush. They have Thrash. Use the 0 point. Thrash to make sure they set up Akame. He knows that they're coming from Snowman. Was set up for a trade, but got shot first. Lockdown afterwards to buy time. Hot flash. That should create map point. And now we have no commands, so you could go for another rush if you so chose. Oh. Reject is playing this quite smart, actually. Uses them early, see if there's a push out. They get contact on A, so they know there's members pushing out of A. You're still holding mid priority. But then you're just waiting. Because mid is in your position, you continue to wait to see if there's a push out from either side. There was eventually on both. You win both of those. Well, you trade one. And that should be it. Oh. Okay. Alright, now let's look at the breeze here. Alright, we're gonna see if CLZ actually had some ideas or not. Because he used to play the KO.
さあ、スクリーンがあるので、なかなかブリッジ上からピークすることはできません。
キングレイヤーも取れてるんで、このドアからも少し体が出しづらいですね。
さらには設置されても、ミッドにも敵がいると、少しリジェクトの者取り返しづらいエリアになっています。
ちょっと気になるのは赤目の動きですかね。
後ろですね。
I mean, the pistol, it's just the sheriff, so.
何してくるんだろう。使い合いっていうのがちょっとファーストラウンドからヘンディングが見えましたね。
はい。さあ、まずは1本取ったフェンデルです。2ラウンド目。再びここに来た。
翔太がすでに武器を落とすんですね。
Elbow control, mid control. Once again, the leer in mid is that's always been pretty strong ever since the range changes. So I mean, that's the thing. I think Reyna is actually pretty strong on Breeze. I think there's a world where Reyna can get very strong on Breeze, but like I'd like to see more than just like the Reyna. Like I don't see anything else in which they're collaborating with anyone, or if there's any type of synergy, if there's anything else. Isn't most of the idea with Reyna a double flash? Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? Well, there's two ways. There's two ways to look at it. One is you can also position Reyna's leers as these like pop flashes type, right, across different screens, like wall type or screen type smokes. So there's that, but outside of that, it's either like double flashes or at least just like a bunch of projectiles, right? So that they can't pop the leer right away, or they're trying to pop the leer but also getting tagged by something. Like it always has to be a choice of do I pop the leer or do I hide? Because you want to make it so that even if they pop the leer, they're getting maybe pinged by a recon at the exact time, or if they're popping the leer, they're getting hit by some other decay or something that allows the Reyna to basically get the kill, whether it's your leer or not. So, yeah, but in this case, the only real thing is the Sova, right? It's either the drone or the recon. And yeah, you can have long-range lineups with the dart and then the drone and then the leer. That can happen. But that's like that's such a very specific scenario, and there's only one option with it. So, like, for instance, as soon as the Sova's dead, then the Reyna's just like, well, Reyna go kill, right? You know what I mean? So I'm not a big fan. Again, I think the leer holds pretty strong value on Breeze, given the range, but the other thing is Dismiss doesn't really have as much. Dismiss doesn't have as much value as it would on other maps, I feel. And one of the greatest things about Dismiss is how much chaos you can cause with the aggro that you draw. But in Breeze, it's so wide and so long range that, I mean, sure, you can draw out a couple more shots, but afterwards, everyone's just gonna be like, okay, like, we can't chase it anyway, so ignore it, shoot the other guys. But they are using, well, first of all, they're 4-0, so that's going well. They're also using the Reyna to basically help plant Shota in mid every round. You have the leer to try to take more control. And they are almost always consistently going to be able to take nests this way. So that's fine. That makes B always a bit easier for them. Unless it's a rush onto A. On an A split. I was about to say, surely this is a round that Reject starts to answer back, but okay, it was. It's just a bit costly is all. So finally a bit of a change up. But okay, so the Reyna's always going to be the Jet's buddy. Okay, that much I'm kind of okay with. Because either of you can take aggro and create space for each other. But again, the question always becomes, could another agent not do this? Like, could a Yoru just not do the same thing? I think they could. I mean, maybe the flashes, etc., aren't going to be as easy in mid than Arena, because Arena can just throw it up and it's going to cover 360, but... I mean, that's kind of the benefit that the Reyna has, is that if the Lear doesn't get popped right away, you know you are safe for that entire duration. So there is that. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect timing synchronization like a pop flash for something else. So yeah, so here they're going to use it. With the drone. That way the drone is relatively safe. Granted, again, in my head, if you're gonna do this, like this, you could accidentally pop both, right? Like the enemy could accidentally hit both. Because they're fairly close to each other. So like that's something that if you're going to do that, probably should be a little different. The thing they didn't account... Okay, so now they tag Brian. The drone's just staring at him in the face. Actually draw out all the snake bites. So that's kind of big. Because of the initial position of Brian, Fennel's going to try to explore a little bit in halls. Oh no! Dude, I keep doing this. Here we go. I mean, you only have 30 seconds. But eventually CLZ is just going to get all the kills. Reject, try to go for an aggressive push. I'm pushed out from both sides. Make Fennel a bit weak. They realize Fennel's been kind of taking these initial space a little bit for free. So now pit, you cover mid doors, the Euro goes back, so reject just making sure their pit is set up and safe and sound. Okay. Dismiss plus Lear to try to clear the pit. They'll pay for that. Pit gets dropped. It's an easy peasy round. Okay, you call that it's probably a fake. When's that gate crash dying? Oh, well, after you get your kill, that's what. There's still a minute, so there's no reason for Reject to over-rotate here, which they won't. Gangpin's in a bit of a stressful situation, but it's the best he can do with the information that he has. Dude, how's saving that round? Okay, so they check for the early push to see if it's a quick A pinch. It's not, so they just ditch metal door as well. Once again, Gangpin's on their own. The gate crash is there. It is in the middle of the pyramids, which is a bit of a risky position, especially without double smokes. And no one's watching Nest either. Reject kind of suspects that. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay. Dude, how many rounds has this guy saved for them?
この若手のプレイヤーではありますけど、その度胸と安心感と、なんでしょうね、若さもありながら、もうベテランの風格もありながら、
はい。
素晴らしいプレーを見せます、サルス。
しかも最後ね、ニューラルセットでバイパーピット戻ろう。
当然、ラストラウンド、ファーストバッターやることがね、吠えてますね。2回とも引き打ちでしっかり捉えることに成功しました。6対5前半ラストラウンド、ファーストバッターやることがね。
メタルのアップドラ
I mean, the Reyna, listen, they're not playing solo. Like, you are using the Reyna's abilities to the best that you can. You're always trying to set up for your teammates. You're trying to use it if you're going in with a drone, etc. But at the end of the day, it's... You're not really... The thing is if you're not setting up the Reyna to get kills, it's not really going to find as much value. And again, I just feel like the Dismiss probably doesn't have as much value as it would on a Bind or a Split or an Ascent, given the layout of the map. So it's a bit of a shame. But at least they're not just like, ah, whatever, like, just go get kills on your own. Hey, Potatoes, how's it going?
さあ後半始まりました。セブンのリジェクト守りのフェンデルです。さあカメラが閉じたタイミングでフェンデルがトンネル側か全てエルボーを押さえに行きます。ディフェンスダブルピックカーテをうまく気になるギャンピンハルスがハルスがギャンピンのカバーに来て2人を抑えることに成功。ワンブイスリジェクト守りのフェンデル
Was this just a...
オフレインの枠1個しかないですよね。そうですね。はい。ブルーの3位に入ってしまいます。さあ後半始まりました。セブンのリジェクト守りのフェンデルです。さあカメラが閉じたタイミングでフェンデルがトンネル側か
Why break it?
さあ後半始まりました。セブンのリジェクト守りのフェンデルです。さあカメラが閉じたタイミ
You
ングで
weren't spotted initially. You could have had your teammate break it as the Reyna went for the peak first. The Dismiss to try to draw aggro. It doesn't work out because there's more people around the corner.
ハルスが裏を見に行く余裕があったってところですかね。裏を見に行く余裕というか、もうエルボー多いんだったらサイト少ないだろうっていうことで裏を戦いに行く判断をした。
Yeah, I mean, Fennel just... There wasn't much you were doing after the first couple rounds. I think what happens in the first half is... Reject basically says, like, fine, just take mid. Like, whatever. Right? And they're always kind of staying to make sure they can rotate. And then they kind of push out at the same time from either side, because if you're focusing on mid, your sides are going to be weaker.
いやー、まあ、
Doing well, that's good. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm like a little tired, little Monday blues. Not like actually sick or anything, just a little tired. Might have to go get another cup of coffee. In fact, I might do that after this map. To be very fair, this VOD isn't very stimulating, and I think that's part of it, but it's not exactly helping me. But after this, we're going to check out Thailand, see how Full Sense is looking. They 2-1'd Made in Thailand in the upper finals, and then they 3-0'd him in the grand finals. So I don't know if we'll watch both. Maybe we'll watch just the grand final. See what maps they played.
ハーバーラインも気づいてなさそうだったが XL スーパープレイこれ頭も入ってハルス HP ないぞ
引くしかありません。非常に落ち着いたプレーでリジェクトはこのラウンドは取得しそうだと思ったんですが、こういった時にやっぱりね壊してくるのがセットまで持っていきますが、闇の取り返しスネークバイトある程度限定されている。最後は本です。わかりましたと。はい。赤目オペレーターで武藤がいくですか。
これクレジットないの当たってるアウトローですよ。
Outlaw for Fennel. Goodbye. You know that they bought an op too, man. Shota's probably licking his lips. Got the Cypher early, so now you're just holding mid. An A. Okay, so you're setting up CLZ to anchor with the toxic screen. I don't mind that too much either. There's that kill that Shota wanted. Onto the op. So he takes the op for himself. Fennel just ditches A here. What? You know the opponents are an eco. I mean, not holding it close is totally reasonable, but you're not even going to have anyone on stairs? No one's watching mid. Don't tell me he dies and gives the weapon over. Well, he's not going to know about the flank. Oh boy. Like, why did it... First of all, he uses dimensional drift here, which is which is great. Lets him get into the site quicker too to check if it's being diffused or not.
しかも安全のためにディメンショナルドリットを使い確実に抜いてみましたね。
まあ解除の相手は俺が見るという感じで
That's a feels bad man round from Fennel. I mean, yeah, spreading out super wide when the on an anti-eco, sure, not great, especially on something like Breeze, but
フェンデル考えるべきってどういうことなんですかね。悪くはないよ。
seems like they weren't exactly on the same page on how they wanted to react afterwards.
さあメインをコントロールするためのこのカーテンを焚いてリコンボール
Okay, so Dariali doesn't set up anything. There's no rush, so they decide we're not going to waste our creds. We're just going to group up, which that I'm fine with.
ではありますがスパイカーが出して武藤この苦しい状況何人見るかもう自分はもう逃げていいと戦わなくてもいい相手をする動きです体力をここでしっかり味方を引っ張って敵が引っ張ります
Muto draws them out so far.
武藤が残してくれたので正面を突破できた赤目しっかり触りながらギャンピングカバーです
ハンターズフィリ来たタイミングでリテイク狙ったんですけども、その隙に B メインが押されてしまった。
こ
しまったラウンドになりましたね。
はいよくそれでスポンが収めることができたといや残したそのお土産は非常に大きかったですよ19ラウンド18ブレードストーム赤目先頭勝負に行く
いやーフラッシュ
Hold up. What?
19ラウンド18ブレード
Oh, he's on the wall.
ストーム赤目
Oh, he tries to shoot as well.
先頭勝負に
いや
行く
ーフラッシュ
そうです後ろからちょっともらってますね
Just a quick kill from Akame.
オペレーターですね。
はいそこ削り取りました
いやこのオペレーターと正直ワンピック追いたかったと思うので、
はい
Okay, so you've lost elbow control. What does Fennel do? They're pushing out halls, which I think is reasonable. You're just going to check in mid. XCL even gets a kill for his trouble, so that's good. You actually get the flank onto A main, which is fine, but Brian and Akame will get the kills, which that's props to them. Fennel, I think, played it the best they could. They have Reject now has the pit. There's not much they can do. I don't mean this as an insult to APAC, but I generally think America's in EMEA tier 2 is miles ahead. I would agree. Well, EMEA probably depends on the region, the sub-region, but America's tier 2 for sure. For sure. I mean, even in Asia, I guess it kind of depends on like the team and the subregions, but overall, generally, and I think that's where you see a lot of the gap between that's where we're still seeing the gap of did people used to play hack FPSs or not? Which again, yeah, Valorant's a different game, etc., etc., etc. But here's the thing, especially at a challengers level, like at the lower the level is, it's like purely off of just good like gunplay and angles and pre-firing and all that. Like you can win, right? So that's where you're gonna see that gap still. This map, I mean, this game is a lot worse than I thought it was gonna be. Which makes me wonder how the playoffs are going to look, because like I was hoping, I don't know, I feel like Fennel shot themselves in the foot here in a lot of different ways, and I'm just not quite sure what's going on. But yeah, it always goes back to the same discussion we've had last week as well, of like experienced players, experienced coaches, etc. If you're not going to have the coaches, at least if you have more experienced players and IGLs, like they're going to be able to help lead their team a bit better, etc., etc. And that pool is just not as deep in overall Pacific. Again, there are exceptions, but overall. But yeah, Fennel doesn't. I mean, it's just like every other round this game. There are certain moments where they give me a lot more confidence again, and there's certain moments where I'm like, well, regardless of the shots, whether they're good or not, it's just gets a little concerning.
何度もこの力強いプレーを見せてきたフェンデルです。それは昨年から今年も変わりません。簡単には崩れないフェンデル。
バイパスヒットをね、ショーティで対応したっていうのにも驚いたんですけど、その後のショートのオペレーターですかね。中央の夜を捉えた後のサイトのジャンプエントリー。
Well, really? Because here's the thing. I think Pacific Challengers overall has gotten better than last year, which is... I mean, maybe that's sad too, but... I do think it has. Granted, I didn't watch Challengers Japan too closely last year. I mean, I guess if you're comparing it to like Scars last year, Looks very strong. Obviously, even at Ascension. But this game is definitely, I think it's worse. It's worse than the Fennel Varel game, and it's worse than some of the earlier week games I've seen, which is kind of, that's why I'm wondering what happened to Fennel in this game, because this is the last game they played in the round robin, and now these two teams are seed 1 and 2. They're playing against each other in the upper finals in 2 days. But it's definitely worse than some of the other games we've watched in Japan, and I'm trying to figure out, well, other than the Reina pick, why else that might have happened. I do think the Reina pick was a big reason, but hold on. Did Fennel pick Icebox? I mean, it worked against the other teams, which is, that's something. Those are the only times they, well, okay, so the Breeze they just didn't play, and then they left it open. I don't know if they maybe banned it every other time, but they just did not. So that's like, again, but it's a question of, well, did you bring out the Reina because you thought you had an idea, which I didn't see too much of, or was it like well, we really didn't want to play KO anymore, or like we just didn't think it felt good, so we changed it up, because then it's not a good sign. But then this whole Harbor Omen comp on Icebox is, apparently they were committed to this, which is a little concerning. Yeah, so the thing is, I think you have to be very realistic, and I don't think you have to feel bad when you look at it this way. Obviously, VCT Pacific is a little different, and I think VCT Pacific is growing very quickly. I think it's still, the overall average is still behind in a lot of different aspects, but I think it's growing very quickly. But when you look at the tier 2 region, the tier 2 leagues, the thing is even just like fundamentals, like the most basic fundamentals. I don't even mean like great fundamentals, right? I don't mean like, oh, they're winning off of fundamentals. I just mean basic fundamentals were just missing in a lot of the regions, in a lot of the Pacific subregions. So if they even have like remotely reasonable fundamentals, regardless of whether they're winning or losing, to me that's like an improvement. And I don't mean this like against any of the teams. It's just that like you just weren't used to playing that way. There's definitely a lot of that, right? Where they're copying plays and comps, and they're not exactly understanding how to adapt to it. But so the thing is I would rather see gunplay fundamentals and then still see them just copying comps and not really understanding it. Because to me, that's probably a more important improvement for a lot of Pacific subregions than like having really neat ideas but still missing a lot of basic fundamentals. But I think that's the thing, is that if you followed it pretty close, like, so for instance, dude, Korea used to be real, like, they're, not to take away from DRX's crazy streak, but there is a reason not a single team got close to really actually dethroning DRX. Yes, they've lost before. Yes, F4Q took them down. Yes, New Turn went to Masters Reykjavik before DRX did. Yes, it happens. And there were great players, right? But that's the thing. If you look at like Texture, why is he suddenly now finally going to an international tournament? Right? Things like that. You look at that and you're like, oh, because the overall playing field was very low. And you would see a lot of that where teams would try to copy like DRX's comps and their set plays, etc., even in Korea. But it's like, well, they would just kind of be like, well, round 3 we're doing this play, and like round 6 we're doing this play. And there wasn't really a lot of that. But it's a lot of like just simply just not trading, like not moving together. Like that used to just be the norm in Korea challengers. So this year, regardless of if your aim is good or not, like I'm glad to see that teams are like trying to do that. Obviously, some teams, maybe the aim is lacking, but Yeah. Well, and then there's the other thing. And then there's that thing of like, well, at a certain point, if you're not connecting it to kills, then it just doesn't seem like it's working anyway. Like it's because it's hard to see what the idea was if the first step just doesn't get taken because you just didn't click the head. Then there's that as well. Yeah, I mean, overall, here's the thing: is I don't think you have to feel bad saying it. Obviously, you don't want to go around being like, "Well, this region's trash." Like, there's no point in looking at it. But the reason I'm trying to follow all the Pacific Challenger subregions is specifically because of that. Is that it's very much further behind. I'm just gonna say it outright. It is less fun to watch. It is. It's more boring to watch. It's not as stimulating, but my question is there growth at all or not? Which I would like to believe there is, because quite frankly, the best teams that showed up, aka the teams that went to Ascension last year, well, it looked pretty decent. Honestly, Ascension was fun. Well, the playoffs were. The groups were like, they were kind of haphazard. But overall, right, you could see glimpses of it, and you could see improvement. And basically, the top 4 teams that made it, into the semifinals, the playoffs, we were like, okay, these are the best teams at Ascension, and they are playing with good fundamentals. And at that point, whoever wins is basically the team that like slightly anti-stratted better, or just had slightly better aim and clutch percentages, things like that, which ended up being Bleed. So to me, like, Ascension got me thinking, you know what? Pacific overall is behind, and it's not as fun to watch every single region and game, but there's probably growth. And then you see like new recruits being picked up, and that's the other thing. I'm just like, well, maybe these guys, maybe there's like guys with really cracked mechanics that just need another shot. So, 감마마님 안녕하세요. So yeah. So again, but yeah, that game was weird. I mean, we clicked on it. I wasn't even intending to watch it, and I clicked on it because we were looking at the Circle of Life that they've had in Challengers Japan. And I'm kind of regretting that I clicked on it because it really did get me a little drowsy. But I mean, we'll see. The thing is Fennel, I don't know. Their Sunset seemed okay. But they did seem to have this, both team, Viral and Fennel both seem to have a weird obsession with mid on both sides of the map. So I'm not so sure. Let's look at this though. Okay, so a Split Lotus Icebox, that's all they played. I want to see what their overall win rates were during the league. Okay. Well, Full Sense is gonna have high, win rates on whatever, but they've played every map thoroughly, except for Breeze. The Breeze is their permaban. Oh, and Bind. Which one's your permaban? How did you avoid playing both? Wait, what? Why are the bands not listed for the finals? Full Sense bands Bind. Okay, Myth band Sunset and Breeze. Bind is your perma ban, huh? Breeze is your second ban. Bind. And Myth just happens to also not like Breeze. Apparently a lot of teams just helped out Full Sense by just basically nobody learning to play Breeze. Wow, Full Sense really hates Bind. How did Bind become your permaban? And how did you get away with it? Huh. My main Breeze was a cider in the final. Well, yeah, I guess they only each got one ban. Yeah, that makes sense. But they never got to it. My main worry is that, to me, it looks like America's EMA T2 is improving fast in APAC. Oh, I think that's true. Is that concerning? Sure. Well, it's not concerning. It's more a matter of, if the tier 1 regions are catching up to each other in a relative cycle, then eventually over time the tier 2s will even out. That's my thought process. As long as the player base is also there. Obviously that's an important part. But the thing is tier 1 APAC, you have to consider that like most of these teams in Pacific, most of these teams were the teams that like just couldn't be touched in their own regions, right? Or a lot of these teams / players. And then through last year's Pacific, so that therefore last year there was like a pretty big gap still between DRX and PaperX and the rest. T1 obviously gave a very good fight, but then they also kind of lost steam towards the later half of the year, right? They didn't, their improvement kind of stagnated. So, but I think what you're seeing is after last year and finally kind of testing your own power levels, we saw all these orgs saying, okay, this is what we need to shore up. Is it individual firepower? Sure, let's bring that in. Like you go through all these roster changes, and I think coaching changes where you now have enough teams that have coaches that work with the teams they're trying to build, right? Not saying like any of the coaches were good or bad objectively, but I think that's the big difference you're seeing. And I think what you're seeing is basically over just the one first year of VCT Pacific, we now have that was just enough data for coaches and players to figure out how to piece together the remaining pieces that weren't DRX and PaperX, if that makes sense. So, right, because the pool overall is pretty similar, and then obviously more imports as well. Like let's not forget that either. Granted, yes, the team that won is 0 imports, but my point is there was enough of the challenging each other factor, whereas tier 2 is always going to be slower, right? Tier 2 in regions that are weaker, the tier 2 is always going to grow slower because there's like even less room for imports, there's less competition, etc., etc., etc. So I don't think you can expect the same type of growth because the factors are pretty different. But yeah, it's funny. I totally get it. It is kind of amusing to me that someone who's mostly watching Western challengers would look at this and be like, wow, this is concerning. Whereas I'm looking at a lot of these challengers matches that we're watching and I'm like, oh, this is hopeful. Because my bar is so low for challengers in Pacific overall. So to me, it's actually pretty hopeful. I mean, there's still big question marks, but I don't know. Overall, it feels like an improvement. Granted, not every region, not every team, but, you know, in general. But you look at regions like Japan probably struggles a lot because the consistency of the growth is probably still very unstable because not only do you not have a lot of background just overall in PC esports, but like you don't have great backgrounds in TAC FPS, you don't have great backgrounds in PC FPS, and then you don't have great backgrounds in PC esports. So not only is it the genre that you're lacking experience in, but it's also just like structure and competition and competing at the highest level, et cetera, in a team game. Whereas Korea, not as much experience in TAC FPSs, but at least you had, you know, very minority groups that tried their best. And then at the very end, you still have like infrastructure experience that you can try to, you know, scrape something off of and start building. Things like that. So there's probably that gap as well. But yeah, the thing is North America in general, the tier 2 scene is like way far ahead of almost, I would say, any other region in terms of overall quality. Not like necessarily best teams or best players, but overall quality. And a good way to look at that is you just take a look at all the imports that were all the exports from the NA Challenger scene and how most of them are very successful. I think that alone goes to show. And it's not just because they're all like hard carrying by frags, right? It's just the impact that they bring and the knowledge and the chemistry and then the mechanical skill, etc. that they're bringing. So there is that. Anyway, let's look at the finals then. I guess we'll start with that because this is the rematch. Split before we jump in. Okay, Myth is playing double controller. Full Sense is also playing double controller, but it's Astro versus Omen and Sky versus Breach. CGRS is playing Cypher. Oh, this was LAN, wasn't it? Hold on. I want to see the stage. Where was this? Is it like in an arena? Lots of interviews. It seems like it's on the smaller side, which is fine. Listen, it's better to have a small, but ooh, what is this graphic? Oh, they're comps. This is a very interesting way to. Sorry, we're getting sidetracked here, but this is a very interesting layout because there's so much unused space, but not for clarity. That's just my 2 cents. But maybe there are other teams where they've had multiple comps and that's why they have it this way. Maybe. Could just be the blueprint, now that I think about it. Could be, because if a team changed comps, like you could have like 3 comps here. Small studio with 200-ish audience. Oh, you attended yesterday? Nice. How was the live kind of environment? Oh, there's a second dude. I love, if it's gonna be a small arena, I love the vibes that you get with like a second floor balcony. Dude, Full Sense is kind of a Thai super team though, isn't it? I thought I saw a balcony. The camera's just not gonna ever show us the audience. Listen, 200-ish people is actually not that bad. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I'm so down with that. I'm so down with it. The old SPO TV arena where they used to do a lot of the Nexon games like Dota 2 and Kart Rider and stuff, and LCK for a brief bit. That camera. They had a second balcony too. Obviously, sometimes there's no seats there, so that kind of stinks. But it's kind of a cool vibe. I'm down with it. Oh, that's only for production and like VIP guests. Well, still, it's a cool vibe. In fact, maybe that's a better way to do it, because you get the vibe of like a underground concert type feel, but then fans aren't like paying to, or getting a ticket to stand for the whole time. So I guess that's a better way to do it actually. Maybe if RQ imported FNS, they would have qualified. Wow. He's a pretty decent ranked player with good comps.
การไฟนอลครับสำหรับ Africa TV Valorant Challenger Thailand Split 1ครับการพบกันของทาง Full Sense ครับ
Dude, where are my settings here for Africa TV? Here we go. Oh man, there's skip time settings. Let's go with 10 seconds. 20 is kind of extreme. Let's go with 1080. Playback speed 2 times. Let's go. Poison Cloud and Toxic Screen on B. Dissipate. Oof. Paranoia as well, just to shove them out. It's a good setup. Oh, and then they reset to default. It's already such a good round. Full Sense Really cleansing my palate here. Oh, and then they restack to B because there's just no sign of anything. Oh, it's so good. No, but seriously, it is a good round. I mean, the duels almost went both ways, but you see, so this is a good example of why that mattered, though, is that if they didn't rotate early enough, they just wouldn't have had the trades in time because you're getting swarmed. I guess a big miss here was it's Leviathan getting picked off on Heaven, not being able to hold on to Heaven. It is a bit of a miss that Fox is, well, I guess Fox is going to provide the, yeah, he was going for the fault line, that's why. Wait, no, he just used it though. Hold on, what's the timing here? Curious as to why he goes to Alley and not Heaven. Because if Leviathan is, I mean, it could have just been that they missed it.
30 seconds left.
Because fault line's used onto the site. Yeah, it was just used there. It almost looks like he's trying to set up an aftershock? Does he? No. Maybe. Maybe a comms miss. Either way. Probably would have been smoother, but in any case.
10 seconds left.
Not here to nitpick, just didn't want to end up blindly praising it. Overall, a good pistol from Full Sense, though. Give me 1 second. No, I gotta respond to something here. Let me just respond to this, trying to set up a dinner meeting. And then gotta respond to another thing. Okay. You mean for Myth? Yeah. I mean, especially with a breach on the other side, too. I think they felt that maybe if they were clear from mid, that they were just going to try to swarm. But the thing is I would say that's more a case of, like, unless you're really just baiting out the trap play, it's just a case of Full Sense playing it really well. Because even if you had baited it out, like you're just not taking control of B Heaven in that setup. Unless you knew for a 100% fact that they were doing it, right? I don't know if there's a world where Myth could have possibly traded that positively going into Mail. Probably a world where they could have not lost anyone, probably, but... Okay, the eco's done and dusted. Lurk on A. Trap playing mid again. Breach and Omen. Well, Omen's not here, but I just mean the comp. Oh, and they are holding true. Full Sense is really... I mean, this is just some classic... It's just some classic Breach Cypher gameplay in mid. I mean, they end up using it off of contact to make sure they get it... Wait, what? Oh, is that just through the smoke? Yes. So, PTC trying to get cheeky with it because they got the first kill, trying to hide behind the box. That's just a heads-up spray from Killua. What did... Fox fires here. But, like, from right behind the Leviathan, which, I don't know. That's pretty risky, IMO. Hunt's taking the shot before the stun hits. This heads up. The Rays? Well, the Rays got picked off before the paranoia came. Oh, you mean like right as he's getting peaked? I mean, yeah, you could have. I think he was trying to take the fight and he just lost. It almost looked like he kind of expected someone hiding behind the box as well. Wait, I didn't know that hat had eyes. What? Oh. That's crazy. You learn something new every day. Oh, that's rough. I mean, Kadoom also solo peeking into mid when it's around you need to win is also a little rough, but it does seem just in general that Myth isn't expecting a lot of it. That previous round, it looks like they kind of were expecting it, but a lot of these counter util trap plays, which again is kind of crazy considering the composition of Full Sense is entirely built around trap plays. Oh, it's all good. I mean, I'm like bouncing back and forth on 2x speed as well, so. I mean, I could also be misremembered, but yeah, I think the Rays got picked off and then the paranoia to follow. Well, it's just like, so Myth has to figure out, I mean, first of all, they have to figure out how do we confidently ever pressure mid, which, again, given the setups that they have, it's just I mean, you have Sky and Rays, right? So you have to kind of dump your util early to pressure it at all. Just smokes aren't enough. Or, like, you have to use a gravity wall on one side and a smoke on the other to really pressure it. Oh, and the fault line right after. Smart. Fox. Just a celebration shot off the op.
PDC เลยครับแต่ตรงกลางครับที่เก็บไปถึง3คิวนะฮะในจังหวะที่แมนเชสตัดสินใจการบุกเข้ามา
เนี่ยแล้วเข้ามาคือแบบไม่สมประกอบด้วยเมื่อกี้กระดุมการบัฟเข้ามาหา PC ในระยะนี้แล้วรอเป้าแถมเลือดเหลือน่าจะเหลือ5เมื่อกี้ผมจำไม่ผิดเพราะว่าโอเวอร์เนี่ยเกมสกิปติดมาก่อนแล้วทีนึงนะครับเต็มๆเลยกระดุมนี่ฮะโอ้โหยังไม่มีคิวเลยฮะท่านผู้ชมเอาใจช่วยไปเฮ็ดหน่อยฮะตอนนี้แฟนๆนะครับเดี๋ยวมาดูว่าโอ้โหยูนิตจะได้ทำหน้าที่แบบเพื่อส่งเพื่อนเข้าถึงไฟหรือเปล่านะครับ
เปิดเกมช่วงต้นราวแบบนี้ก็เรียกว่าสำคัญเลยครับ
ใช่ครับ
มองตั้งเกมในรันนั้นเนี่ยจะเอ็นไปทางไหนครับเดี๋ยวรอดูครับ
เต็มที่เล่นค่อนข้าง
It's a good default from Full Sense.
ออกมาใกล้มากนะ
Even though the op gets spotted, you still have Cam in heaven.
กลางหนักเลยแต่ว่าไม่สำเร็จสักทีอ่ะแล้วราวนี้อีกหนึ่งครั้ง
Still see nothing on B, so they push out. It's a bit of an aggressive push. Oh, and the fault line to buy time. Oh, and they're fast on the rotate. And Sushi Boy still has sight, and both trap wires are still alive. The cam just goes down, but you've kind of taken enough space still. Ooh, Cypher ults, they didn't quite account for that though. There's a timing that Leviathan can have. So, I mean, obviously, the thing is if you're gonna get sprayed down, you're gonna get sprayed down already anyway. It's just in hindsight, it's like, I don't know if the shadow step was really the best call there, but I get it.
มันจะรัวๆหน่อยเพราะว่าจังหวะจากหัวเมื่อกี้เนี่ยมันนึกว่ามีประเด็นอยู่ที่ตรงนั้นนะจังหวะที่โยกมาขึ้นมิดเวนครับโอ้โหรวดเร็วมากช็อตนั้นเพราะว่าอันติเบรกของเจเลยทำให้ตัดสินใจได้แบบนั้นเลยนะครับ
นี่มีการเปิดไฟครับหลังจากที่มาโฮที่รออยู่กับเอฟบอบบี้กันตั้งแต่ช่วงต้นมาแล้วนะฮะสำหรับเอเมเจสมุมนี้ต้องบอกว่าวิชาไอเดียคือดีแล้วนะครับแต่เขาเป็นร้อนที่เขาเดินมาซ้อนในจังหวะ2แล้วเขารอซ้อนติดคิว
เรื่อง
นะค
กา
รับ
รมีคนสุดท้ายเดินมานั่นเองอ่ะ
ใช่ครับจะกลับมาดูต่อในรอบที่7
รอเลยครับตอนนี้โอ้โหเวเตอร์4ไปด้วยครับ
แล้วก็นี้ผมเรียกว่าคอนโทรลหนัก
You mean this orb that we're seeing right now?
เอาให้ก่อนนะในช่วงต้นราวนะ
ที่มันบอกว่าจังหวะแรกเนี่ย
This thing right here?
โยกมารอบนี้ทีบอกไม่เป็นไรเดี๋ยวจ่ายไปเลยฮะ
ปิดทางเชื่อมกันเลยนะครับจังหวะจะโอเคแล้วต้องเดินเช็คให้ดี
มาแต่ว่าตรงนี้มาแน่หรือเปล่ามาแน่หรือเปล่าอุ้ย
Okay. I mean, I obviously in one-time speed, maybe it's a little different, but I do think Myth is kind of lucky that Leviathan didn't get more than one kill there, because if he did, the round just ends straight up. The thing is, so either way, the thing I think Myth is struggling the most right now is they're just not accounting for the counter util very well, right? They're expecting that if we get contact, we can keep pushing in. I mean, even this time, like, it doesn't feel, looking at the map, that Killua was, like, purposely trying to make sure he could trade for a potential play like this. It's just a matter that the timing worked out, and it's just in time to make sure that Kadum stays alive. But it's just, and the thing is
โอ้ใส่หัวไปทีนะฮะแล้วพาทีมได้ว่าครัชกลับมาในจังหวะสุดท้ายครับแม่คือมุมใต้พีทาวเวอร์เมื่อกี้คือมันหาก่อนนะ
what? I mean,
โอ้ใส่หัวไปทีนะฮะแล้วพาทีมได้ว่าครัชกลับมาในจังหวะสุดท้ายครับ
แม่คือมุมใต้พีทาวเวอร์เมื่อกี้คือมันเปิดมุมอยู่ดีครับแล้วไม่มีใครดูบีเมนเพราะว่าไกลๆเมื่อกี้ไม่ได้แสดงเช็คด้วย
สิ่งที่สำคัญกว่าในช็อตเมื่อสักครู่นี้นะฮะอาจจะดูนิ่งๆ
there's no way that they. That's just it's just a bad call from Myth. There's no way that they didn't realize he could have snuck in without being spotted at that angle. Simply a bad call. Well, no, they trust me. They could have played it worse. Trust me, people can play that worse. Okay. Okay, we're doing things now. Granted, it took literally everything that Kadum had, but we're doing things. We're drawing things out. The fault line's gone. The Rolling Thunder's still online though, so this is a bit of an unfortunate round to have attempted this. Granted, he's also not Gonna use it because his teammates have all decided to flood the site anyway, so there's no real great angle to use it on. Who gets the kills here? So John Olsen only gets one, which is unfortunate. You should almost always be aiming to get two in that spot, or you know, obviously it's just one guy left. Fox gets CGRS, but Kuntz has already dropped down.
30 seconds left.
มีการเดินเกมกันต่อเวลาในราวนี้กำลังจะหมดลงผู้ชมครับ30 วินาทีสุดท้ายผ่านมาแล้วอะ
Seems like there wasn't a. It seems like there was a bit of a comms chaos with Full Sense and PTC not like filling the site is one thing, but even in 2x speed, it just seems like PTC couldn't make up his mind on which angle he was going to help hold. Yeah, no, trust me. There's infinite ways they could have played it worse. I'm not even kidding. Like there are ways to play that worse.
แม่เชิงหนาเหลือเกิน PTC โดนซะแล้วครับโดนซะแล้วแล้วเข้ามาค่อยๆคอนแทคตัวติดกันอยู่ยังไงทางต้องหนีให้ไวครับแม่ไม่งั้นโดนเสียฟรี1ไม่คุ้มเท่าไหร่ครับเพื่อน
And Full Sense is on an eco. How did it come to this?
มาแก้ตัวมุมของ PTC ไปครับเมื่อกี้กระดุมโดนนะแล้วจิกตัวต้อง
But like this is such a, but you see when you're already losing this much, like these rounds when the opponents are on their eco now are so important. Because how much you can actually take advantage of them being weaker with your util is so important, but it doesn't matter if you just get shot in the head. Hey, you drew out the rolling thunder. No, CGRS. You did not. I mean, he plays it actually the best he could have, because he tags him and immediately turns off the cam so he can move in case there's an immediate swing. It just so happens that Fox is going to just sit here and take the dart out. But that is funny.
พี่ก้าวเราเยือกเย็นเหลือเกินนะที่ผมคิดว่าอาจจะมีแต่ไม่พี่ก้าวเราเอาทัวร์นะครับเกือบแล้วได้มีประเด็นแต่คือด้วยมุมสุดท้ายนะครับในจังหวะที่โพชั่นที่ฟ็อกอยู่เนี่ยต้องมีเซฟล็อกกับ CGS เนี่ยฮะหน้าหลังอ่ะถูกต้องครับเล่นเนี่ยเรียกว่าค่อนข้างจะยากครับถูกต้องครับโอ้ฟ็อกแก้สถานการณ์ค่อนข้างที่จะลำบากเลยครับต้องตัวพิรอนครับที่เลือกที่จะเล่นสุดเลยครับทะลุมานะฮะแล้วก็สามารถที่จะตัดตัวได้ทั้งที่โดนโพลเดอร์ด้วยนะก็ยังสามารถที่จะเล่นต่อได้อีกครับอันนี้ต้องชื่นชมแต่คือเรียกว่าก็เป็นการเล่นที่ค่อนข้างจะเสี่ยงไม่ว่าดันอย่างเนี้ยแล้วไปพลาดนะครับว่าเพื่อนในทีมที่อยู่กลางไซด์เนี่ยจะเล่นต่อได้ลำบากครับแต่ว่าทำได้ก็ทำให้เกิดสถานการณ์นี้แหละ4 ต่อ 5ครับเอเมเทสไล่มาติดแล้วครับไม่ง่ายสถานการณ์
I mean, Full Sense is playing again very okay, but now Myth is starting to draw out some of the util. They saw that the Omen was on the other side. They send in, dude, Sushi Boys off of the trip, just hides behind it, uses his own cyber cage as extra cover. Oh, and hides behind. Oh, so good. The thing is I mean, the way Myth played this was one of the better rounds. They tried to get an entry onto the site. Granted, the Cosmic Divide ends up working against them a little bit, but that's much more on Sushi Boys, in my opinion. Because if you don't do it that way, you're just not taking any space. You could get the plant, but...
ใช้ช่วยกันอยู่ครับมาที่มาเยอะครับออกพร้อมกันครับถึงแม้ว่าจะตัดตัวด้านหน้าใกล้ไม่ได้ครับแต่นี่ฮะอีก3ที่เหลือก็ทำงานกันโอ้โหเรียกว่าครบจบเลยนะครับ6 ต่อ 4ครับไม่ให้ตามตีตื้นได้แบบว่าเสมอได้เองครับทิ้งห่างไปอีกครั้งนึงครับ
Yeah, I mean, it's... I think there are better ways to use the ult, but if you're gonna rush, I don't... There's probably a slightly better angle to use it on. But if you're in, the thing is if you're in Myth's shoes, okay, look at this ult, right? Which obviously this isn't the first time we're seeing this ult, but just in general, if you're only using it this way, like there's two ways to look at this. Because if you only use it this way, because I think the plan here is that they get this. They don't want to flood the site. I don't think Myth necessarily wanted to. I think they end up having to, but the plan is to plant it and then control this space as well, so they have to clear everything, right? Which is probably usually the more ideal way to do it, rather than all being trapped here and then trying to fight from here for ramp control. So, which, by the way, I mean, there's a cleaner angle to do it on, sure, but so yeah, the angle, but no matter how you do it, if you're trying to cover both of these, like, there's gonna be an easy way to peek out. The bottom line though is even if they got onto the site, unless it was if Sushi Boys didn't have a setup to get the double kills, and if he didn't get double kills just in general, no matter what, is that you're going to hold this. You would have had someone who can still hold this. You could have still had someone here. So whether they were here or not, you still have, technically, you should have had an advantage to be able to hold that while still pressuring ramp. So I don't know if you can argue that this is arguably objectively worse, especially considering that they're still scared of potential plays coming out from the other side. I'm not a huge fan of it either, just because I also don't like I don't like using ults if it can be used against you. I'm not going to argue that this angle is by far like better. Dude, did that thing just pop right across the wall?
เรียกว่าเป็นจังหวะรวบเลยครับชุดเดียวหายหมดครับไปเจียครับต้องชื่นชมครับจังหวะ2ที่ตัวชิบอยเบรกไปแล้วเนี่ยเขาจังหวะสัญญาณดีมากใช่คือกลับมาดูได้2คิวเฟกคือกลับมาคือคุ้มแล้วใช่ครับเหมือนจะดูว่าเก็บกลับมาแต่ไม่ครับที่เหลือเขามีเยอะไงของฟูเซนใช้ช่วยกันอยู่ครับมาทีมาเยอะครับออกพร้อมกันครับถึงแม้ว่าจะตัดตัวด้านหน้าใกล้ไม่ได้ครับแต่นี่ฮะอีก3ที่เหลือก็ทำงานกันโอ้โหเรียกว่าช่วงครึ่งแรกแผนที่สปีดครับขอดูนะว่าจะเป็นยังไงกันต่อเนี่ยเกมตั้งรับของฟูเซนและเกมบุกของ MIJ ผมว่ามาถึงจุดนี้ครับคุณผู้ชมครับไม่มีคำว่าได้เปรียบเสียเปรียบนะไม่ว่าจะเป็นดีเฟนเดอร์และแฮกเกอร์ครับผมว่าออกได้ง่ายจริง
I think Myth has just been so pushed in every entry that they had that I think it's a result of they just don't want to get shot on the way in. They just didn't account for Sushi Boy just walking through the wall using his own cyber cage to take out 2 of them. Right? They were eventually the fault line was used on B as well, but they were very scared of all the paranoias and the fault lines, etc. And they hear the paranoia being used on B, so they go into A, but
แล้วตอนนี้จะมีลอดถือมาแล้วไม่เจอที่รอด้านโดนโดนรออยู่ด้านเพราะบอกไม่ออกสักทีแล้วสายไปไม่รู้ดีซีรออยู่ดีเกียร์ซิกเกอร์ไปด้านหน้าแล้วมีสแปมเช็คไปว่าที่โดนอยู่ในไฟเต็มแบบนี้ก็คือแล้วเดินไล่ลงมาเพื่อให้ดีซีถอยครับแล้วสไปร์ก็แผ่นแล้วด้วยโอ้โหแสบแล้วเกินแล้วเป็นเทสราวนี้เอาครับกันว่าไปเปิดเหมือนจะวางที่บีครับแต่มาเองแล้วโดนจับลงมาเรียบร้อยเป็นแซดบอล
the other thing to remember is that we're still pretty early on, I would say still, in the Valorant esports competitive life cycle, where like small errors like that, like let's say, you know, a smoke slightly giving a bit more vision, or you know, a little crack here and there, like stuff like that will still happen. And I think especially with the way some Valorant smokes work, it'll always happen in a fast-paced environment. And then obviously the best teams in the world will just make those mistakes less, if at all. But yeah, but what kind of wall can't be util dumped? That's what I mean though, right? Is that quite frankly, if someone's hiding here as the wall drops, I mean, you can really just assume that if the plant's given that the wall was put like this and you're just holding anti-flashes here and here, right? I wouldn't say you need 3 people, but it just gives you, if your goal is to plant and play post-plant with, again, sure, they eventually, listen, this all breaks apart, first of all, because they get caught in the trap and they don't account for it in any way whatsoever, which is probably the biggest mistake they made. But I'm not trying to argue that this wall is like objectively the best wall they could have done. I just don't know if you can look at that and be like, well, that's a terrible wall, right? First of all, yes, could it have been angled maybe slightly better? Yeah, probably. But no matter how you do it, there's going to be a slight gap if you want to cover both. So you're saying you're saying what? Don't use the wall on the entry in and just use smokes to get in. But if you're in Myth's shoes, you've been getting freaking raffle stomped by trap plays every time. Again, I'm not saying there's other ways to do. I'm not saying there's other ways. There aren't other ways to get in. But if you are committing to try to get into the site and you've been getting raffle stomped by trap plays every time, I think you're probably very concerned with getting shot back on your way in. But what are you arguing is the standard wall? The vertical one? Or you just mean like here? Ooh, that line's terrible. Hey, Keyframe, how's it going? Deny screens and the entry to heaven. But you already but you didn't have anyone in ramp. So I don't know if the entry into I don't know if a wall that denies entry into heaven. Yeah, but the sky was on B. Throwing fakes. And you were sending your rays in to take out whoever's in elbow. I think here's the thing is that I think you're talking about overall that round should have been played differently. Yeah. Whereas that could be true, but in the situation they were in, I don't know if any of those other walls solved the issue that they had, is my point. The sky was throwing fakes here and trying to wrap around by the time the wall had gone up. So at that point, right, there's not a great way to go about it. But what I will say, I think this is a good exercise in remembering that if you're trying to analyze what a team is doing, or even like your own VODs, let's say, like if you're playing in Premiere and stuff, you can't ever look at it and be like, well, what? Okay, so there's two ways to do it. If you're VOD reviewing to come up with better game plans overall, like better playbooks, then you should always try to look at what is the most ideal scenario and how could we have deduced that. But if you're not doing that, you can't look at around and be like, well, that wall's bad because they could have like thrown this utility before that and before that and before that. And then it's like, well, they should have spent the 30 seconds while they were buying in a better way, right? Like that's always going to be the answer. So you do have to kind of take it in stride. And again, like very even the teams that win championships aren't going to play perfect Valorant every round, right? That's why I thought it was very funny that a lot of people were memeing about Coach Mini getting mad even as they were winning last year. I think it was at Tokyo, because I'm like, oh no, I totally see why he was getting mad, because it's like they weren't playing as clean as they normally should be, but they're still winning because they're just better. But that shouldn't have even got to that point. Like it shouldn't have gotten to a point where so-and-so should have had a double kill or anything like that. So there's things like that. No, it's all good. I mean, listen, I could have been wrong too. Which is why I was curious on what you were saying. There's always potential. Your goats DFM play perfect Valorant no matter what. No comment. That's a dangerous statement to answer back to. But yeah, just even when you're like watching live matches, etc., I think it's always good to remember, like if you're cheering for a team and you're like, oh, like man, like they had this, like they could have used it this way, things like that. Like that's, I think to a certain amount that's fine, especially if you're like cheering as a fan on one side. But I think it's always regardless of, you know, if you're cheering for someone, etc., or not, at the end of the day, it's good to remember. I think it's better to remember why they would have done something and then see, okay, even in that situation, if that was their thought process, could a better decision have been made versus, well, that thought process was just wrong, because then it's like, well, that's just not getting fixed this game because that's the thought process that they have. So
อาจจะเยอะที่สุดแล้วในไซด์ครับแต่ว่าต้องยอมรับว่าฟูเซนเมื่อกี้ตรงนี้เหลือเยอะกว่าครับแล้วก็ไปคิดว่าตั้งแต่จังหวะแรกเลยที่ไปตัดทางของจอห์นโรเซ่มาได้ครับในจังหวะที่ทางฟูเซนเองตัดสินใจเข้าที่เขาเวอร์ครับเอาละครับท่านผู้ชมครับฟูเซนออกสตาร์ทไปก่อนครับในครึ่งเวลาหลังต้องราวตรงนี้ครับ8 ต่อ 5ที่ผ่านไป3 ราวเป็นราวที่สำคัญมากครับเพราะว่าพวกเขาเนี่ยเป็นแอตแทคเกอร์ไซด์นะครับ
But overall, I think a big part of it is Full Sense played the early couple rounds pretty well. And I would say all things considered, Myth actually ended up getting enough crucial rounds. They wrecked the econ enough that they strung together enough rounds that they got 5. But I think overall, in terms of just like defaults, etc., Full Sense played a much better half. Granted, Full Sense also had a couple rounds where they ended up getting a lot of good shots, like they just were about to, but that's the only logical conclusion you can make about my thoughts on DFM.
ใช่ครับบอกว่าหนีไปไหนเบสนะอย่าพึ่งครับรอด้วย6 ต่อ 8นะจับที่นั่งกันไว้แน่นแล้วฟ็อกอะเมื่อกี้ครับมีเปิดตัวประทะกันเล็กน้อย
Default screen.
แบบนี้ไม่สำเร็จครับพี่หลวดมีเปิดเสียมาครับในฝั่งของด้านหน้าเข้าเอฮะทางฟูเซนนะรออยู่ครับ
I don't have much money. Post force.
ดูครับของเรียบร้อยครับปิดด้านหน้าทาวเวอร์ไวแต่มันจะหมดลงแล้วมีคนเดินต่อจังหวะนี้อยู่ครับกลับไวครับสุชิบอยมาแน่ฮะเป็นเรื่องจะปล่อยเมื่อกี้ไม่มีเสียเนื้ออะไรกันครับด้านบน A Tower แต่ว่า BDT
He got tagged in heaven, which is... Oh, he even gets a kill. The timing of it is very good. But Myth emptying B site is also very good. I don't know about... Okay. Imagine you have no information on mid anymore. You're waiting to see if it's a push out from heaven. So these guys are just holding screens. These guys don't want to get potentially swarmed. So they want to clear this to see if it's a B pinch. Up to here, maybe even up to here, I'm okay with. But then pushing mid from Ramen. Granted, it's a 2v, you know, it says a double. So in theory, this trade should have happened. But even if it does, is this the best choice they could have made? I mean, with Sky not having refresh recon, actually it's tough either way. The most ideal world would have been Sky checks heaven once more as you've pushed out B garage, but that would have been your second flash. So the answer they really should have is giving up A heaven and entire mid control was pretty rough. But that previous round was a pretty classic round with the Viper screen. Trip's still online. They break it right as the smoke goes up. Yep. Viper's pit to hold them back. These are some snappy shots, though. Wait, how did he... Oh, he peeks out ahead of the paranoia. Where did the... Fault line was used on heaven? Oh, on rafters. But it wears off. It's really good hold from Sephiroth. What? What is that?
โอ้โหเซฟิรอสนะฮะตรงนี้เบรกแตกเลยเลยครับบูเซนจังหวะ
No.
เข้าซ้ายมาจอดหมดนะเจอเชิง
I don't even care if they win or lose this round.
และยังมีเจียร์ TGRS มา
Dude, he breaks Trailblazer.
พีกระดอกมาเป็นดับเบิลพีกแล้วก็ได้ยังมาหนึ่งสองกินยาซูชิบอยโอ้โห
Dude.
แพ้นะซูชิบอย
ฟาดแล้วครับจังหวะสะบัด3ครับคราวนี้
The third kill with the classic,
ไม่
man.
เป็นไร
How does he do it?
เล่าไว้ก่อนแล้วก่อนที่ซูชิบอยบอกเอาใจไปก่อนแล้วกันโอ้นี่ครับแต่อีกหนึ่งนะฮะเดี๋ยวนี้มาเล่นวันนี้นี่ถือว่าพิการเลยนะบางคนได้
In any case, good hold. Oh, dude, the fault line into From the Shadows. It's very good. This is a good set play. On a timing with the From the Shadows, that's not a timing you would read very commonly.
ต้องค่อยๆนะครับแม่ทำอะไรไม่ค่อยได้มากเลยนะฮิลัวทิ้งไรอะทิ้งไปแต่ว่าบอลเดินกลับมาหล่อแล้วมันจะเป็นซูชิบอยอีกครั้งหนึ่งครับโอ้วันนี้นี่ท็อปฟอร์มเหลือเกิน
ริปเปิลคิลครับสำหรับซูชิบอยในราวที่17ครับและแน่นอนครับขึ้นท็อปไปที่เรียบร้อยครับซูชิบอยในการเล่นแผนที่สปีดครับ21คิวไปแล้ว
ใช่ครับแต่ทีเดียววันนี้
ต้องให้เลยครับ
อูบูชื่อซูชิบอยบ่อยมากนะ
ดูเหมือนกันจริงนะโอ้โห
ฟอร์มของเขาเนี่ยไม่จะหยุดอย่างไรแล้วซูชิบอยออนไฟเหลือเกินนะ
เจอทางของผู้เซนเดินเกมบุกไวกันมากครับ
Screen onto B now with the Poison Cloud.
ตอนนี้ประเด็นมันคืออย่างเงี้ยแก้กันราวต่อราวเลย
ถูกต้อง
And they get mid for free. Granted, for now, they're more or less trapped. Cool. Takes a big hit. Has to give up heaven. So now you kind of hold. Oh, no! That's unfortunate. What a tease by PTC.
และสำคัญเลยเดินมาเด่นหัวเก็บทางของไป1คิวมี2เวลาแล้ว MIGN นะซิกเกอร์จ่ายมา
Kilo needs to just not. Yeah, it just needs to wait. The thing is, yeah, they're still worried about Sushi Boys. Not much they could do on this round. I mean, giving away mid for entirely free. But without a great plan to... Like, there's no gravity wall in male. There's no the second smoke in male. And the Poison Cloud, but... Hey Pumaja. Yeah, we watched a couple games of Japan earlier. Now watching a little bit of the finals for Thailand. No. CGRS is on the team. But as we see John Olsen, this is actually a little bit. It does feel like overall Full Sense has a better understanding of like why they're making certain moves and why they're taking certain control of space. Myth definitely has rounds where they suffer a little bit from we have this setup but we don't know what advantages we gain from it. I mean, you have all your ults. Oh. Man. But it's like, I see, this is... again, like I said earlier on in the stream, I think Sky still has good value on certain comps and maps. But the problem becomes if you're so used to thinking of it the old way, once the couple early guiding lights don't get you anything, you start to want to hold on to it, right? Because it feels bad if you're only left with one and you're like, well, do I use it now to check again or do I use it for the retake and things like that? But in this case, Like, they are not gaining any forward information. So unless you were going for an early peak off the bat, holding on to it seems rough. At the end of the day, though, no matter what you do, like, at some point, like, whether you use the guiding light and then if they don't push, you have to jump peak again. Like, at some point, you're going to have to get information on with contact. And the point is you died, so... But overall, I mean, full sense, there were a couple neat things with their util. You know, like the from the shadows with the fault line, things like that. Which is pretty good. But overall, I mean, just a good understanding of the trap comp and kind of, again, oh man, like the teams that end up winning, it really comes down to, are you willing to like hedge your bets a little bit, so to speak, right? You can't just play 2-1-2 defaults, especially on defense, like every time. To be fair, I haven't watched much either. I watched a little bit of full sense in the beginning of the season, and that was it. So, I mean, honestly, that's if you're not really sure on how to use your timings, etc., and you're not really setting something else up with the sky, then yeah, the Yoru is probably a little better. You're gonna have to get contact anyway. Lay the map a little bit wider. I think Sky's gonna go into that category where I think she's still pretty solid as a second initiator if you're doing double initiator. But I mean, well, no. She still works. But yeah, it's just like if you're using double controller on certain maps, at that point, maybe the fade is just better with the double drone. I know. I actually think that if you're not going to know exactly your timings on how to cycle things and you're playing solo Sky, I think you're better off playing double duelist with Yoru. And then play double controller and put a sentinel. I actually think so. Sky and Gecko? Yeah, like that's... Yeah, Sky and Gecko would be a pretty good double initiator combo. But yeah, if you're gonna like use your guiding lights and hope that you tag someone, or you're kind of scared to use it, you're like holding on to it, at that point like a Yoru is better, right? I'm not trolling. Granted, you probably want at least some other initiator to get some information, but if you're gonna feel the need to like have to get a kill off of your sky flashes because you only have two, like if you're just not sure of how to utilize that space better or how to hold that space better, then you might as well get someone who's gonna have more options to do stuff after the kill. Oh no, Myth, you're trapped. What will you do? Oh, Kunst is just gonna stomp on through to friggin' try to open up this round. Oh boy. Oh boy.
ตัวเนี่ย3-1เริ่มจากเคลียร์ทางของจอร์เซ่ไปให้ก่อนนะครับเป็นทางของฟ็อกพีซีในการได้ช็อตซ้ายที่แต่ว่าเดินขึ้น
Give me a second. I'm gonna go get more coffee. BRB.
เลยครับ
We are back with some coffee, with some snacks.
แมป2เปิดมาที่ไม่ได้พักหายใจเลยนะครับแล้วดูว่าส่งเอเพเนี่ยโอ้โหที่งานไป3ราวทีเดียวนะครับในช่วงต้นแบบนี้นะครับต้องยอมรับเลยว่ามีแผนมาเคาน์เตอร์ทุกราวเลยนะไม่ว่าจะเป็นทั้งที่เต้าราวได้เป็นทั้งกูบาย
เดินมาแท็กฝั่งซีมาทะลุฝั่งแท็กเกอร์ใส่ของเราเลยครับงงมันอยู่เหมือนกันนะมีมาออกในรอบที่4ครับมีปิดพลาดฝั่งด้านหน้าเอเมนเอาไว้อะ
คือความกล้าเล่นเป็นนะครับท่านผู้ชมครับคือทำได้3ราวเนี่ยที่เราเห็นที่เขาทำถ้าทำได้เนี่ยมันทำให้การเดินเกมเอเนี่ยมันต้องยิ่งละเอียดละครมากขึ้นแล้วก็ช้าด้วย
ใช่ครับต้องมาลองต่อครับไม่เองเราจะเสียไป3วิต่อเนื่องครับในช่วงต้นเกมแบบนี้เนี่ย
Okay.
ดึงเกมกลับมาได้ไหมหรือเปล่าเนี่ย
Just wanted to let you know you're one of the best casters in Valorant. I think that's too kind. But one day, I will be. Thank you, though. Appreciate it. That's the goal.
จ่ายมารออยู่ด้านหน้าจังหวะแบบนี้ไม่จะสบายบามีสเน็กไว้เบรกไว้ที่มาระยะส่งต่อมาวิจารณ์ของจังหวะเป็นเดียวแต่ไล่มากันต่อเหลือแค่คิรัวคนเดียวคนสุดท้ายจะเข้ามาเต็มเลยคุณผู้ชมครับดูนี่ไงไล่เป้ามาเรียบร้อยเป็นวาวของฟูเซนครับในเกมตั้งรับแทนที่โลตา
เก็บไม่กลัวที่เราบอกมาเยอะแยะไม่ไหวจริงเยอะมากแล้วแหละเหลืออยู่ตรงนี้ของกูเซนครับตีกระโดดก็ต่อเนื่องไปแล้วแหละ
I never knew there was a little mark on the bottom of B-side either. Learn something new every day.
พี่โตมีเสียบ้างเลยครับจังหวะที่เมื่อกี้ที่ผู้เซนพยายามดีแต่ว่าพอเขาไม่ฝืนเนี่ยพอเขาเสียเขาเล่นจะรอและจังหวะเดียวที่เขาเล่นเนี่ยสังเกตคือจะมาพร้อมกันนะครับแล้วทำได้ด้วยครับโอ้โหลักทิเบตตรงนี้สำคัญมากๆครับถ้าเอเบเดครับไม่สามารถที่จะกู้วิกฤตนี้ได้ครับอาจจะทำให้ผู้เซนไหลยาวๆเลยนะเกมรับด้วยประเด็นอ่ะ
ต้องครับรอบนี้ยังไงดีครับ
นี่เรายัง
เซตท็อปสกินเซตทัพเวอร์ปิดมาก่อนครับในช่วงต้นราว
ใช่ครับรอบที่5ครับสิ่งที่เราไม่เห็นครับท่านผู้ชมครับคือบอมไซส์4ครับของทั้งคู่นะครับ
มีแค่การประทะที่หน้าใสเท่านั้นเลยครับดูมุมนี้ก่อนดูมุมนี้ก่อนเลยยืนรอบ้างแล้วรอบที่เป็นมาเยือน3เที่ยวครับจังหวะที่ผู้เซนมาแล้วบอก
I mean,
มุมนี้ก่อนต้องครับรอบนี้ยังไงดีครับ
นี่เรายัง
dude, what?
ช่วงต้นราว
You get the orb for free.
ครับถ้า
ยังไงดีครับ
นี่เรายัง
เซตท็อปสกินเซตทัพเวอร์ปิดมาก่อนครับใน
He uses a nanoswarm in B.
สิ่งที่เราไม่เห็นครับท่านผู้ชมครับคือบอมไซส์4ครับของทั้งคู่
Clear the alarm bot.
มีแค่การประทะที่หน้าใสเท่านั้นเลยครับดูมุมนี้
And then they... I mean, there's...
รอบนี้ยังไงดีครับ
นี่เรายัง
เซตท็อปสกินเซตทัพเวอร์ปิดมาก่อนครับในช่วงต้นราว
ใช่ครับรอบที่5ครับสิ่งที่เราไม่เห็นครับท่านผู้ชมครับคือบอมไซส์4ครับของทั้งคู่นะ
มีแค่การประทะที่หน้าใสเท่านั้น
Dude, Myth just waits for it.
มุมนี้ก่อนดูมุมนี้ก่อนเลยยืนรอบ้างแล้วรอบที่เป็นมาเยือนจะพิพากษาเป็น3เที่ยวครับจังหวะที่ผู้เซนมาแล้วบอกรู้นะโหแล้วยอมปล่อยไปก่อนดิสซี่เบรกเอาไว้แต่ดีกระจายตัวกลับไปในฝั่งลิงล้อ
What a read.
ตัดสินใจถือว่าหลายการเหมือนกันครับลาดข้ามไปที่รัวแล้วบอมไปปาด2ปาภาพไม่จับไม่เป็นไรแต่ว่า
Whoa, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. What just happened?
รู้นะโหแล้วยอมปล่อยไปก่อนดิสซี่เบรกเอาไว้แต่ดีกระจายตัวกลับไปในฝั่งลิงล้อแล้วครับเราบอก
จังหวะตัดสินใจถือว่าหลายการเหมือนกันครับลาดข้ามไปที่รัวแล้วบอมไปปาด2ปาภาพ
Oh my god.
ได้เหมือนกันเฮดฝั่ง3เลยทีเดียวครับจากที่เหลือผู้เล่นมากกว่าแล้วเดี๋ยวกลายเป็นวันวันเดชั่นครับ CGI มาที่ช่วยแต่ว่าดีเอฟบาร์รอรับถึงที่แล้วอัปเปอร์ด้านบน
เอาครับเอาเราไล่กับเอเมเชสครับนับ1ในแผนที่โลตัสครับ
9 อ่ะ
เดี๋ยวตอนนี้เขาเข้ามาแต่ที่บอกไปครับพอการเล่นแบบดันขึ้นหายในเกมตั้งรับครับถ้าเกิดทำได้คุ้มค่ามากการทีมค่อนข้างได้เยอะมากๆแต่ถ้าเป็นเหมือนในราวเมื่อสักครู่นี้เนี่ยจะกลายว่าเสียตัวผู้เล่นครับ
ผมว่าด้วยความที่ก่อนหน้านี้คือเขาพยายามและทำได้ด้วยไงแต่หลังจากนี้อาจจะไม่แล้วแล้วก็รอดูว่าตอนนี้ก็เลือกที่จะโฮรอไว้ก่อนนะการใช้ทีมนะครับแล้วตกกระดุมขึ้นมาไวๆครับที่เอเลด้านบนแล้วทีด้านหน้าเป็นจากเฟิร์สคราวอยู่ยังไงเลือกที่จะเปิดเอดอ
The instant from the shadows after taking rubble. It's a bit of a... It's a bit of a send, right? Because... The thing is worst case you cancel. Worst case it brings someone back from stairs. So the risk is that there's someone here or here. This is probably the biggest risk because this is like worst case you pull someone back from stairs, you get the information that they're there, and you've already taken rebel control and you can push up. This is probably the big concern of like if they were here, they would hear you and they could take you out as soon as you finish the TP. But how many people are starting on B heaven, right? I mean, usually you have some other util to hold B, and then you're either holding stairs and rotating over, or you're holding baby door and rotating over. So honestly, it's a pretty good send. A send nonetheless, but... CGRS Gecko hits different. Sushi Boy is like, nah. เอาละ3-1พี่บอยครับต้องขอยาวๆเลยครับปล่อยให้ราวนี้ตกเป็นของเอเมเทสไปแล้ว2-4ครับกลับมาแล้วเอเมเทสเกมของเขา I boiled the water too much. It's like way too hot.
ดูเลยครับในรอบที่7ครับ
แต่ก็ต้องมีจังหวะไม่ชวนนะเมื่อกี้นะอนิเมะ2คันที่ปล่อยออกไปครับเอเมเทสครับก็ทำให้เขาได้ราวที่2มาแต่ก็ยังมีเหลืออยู่ครับเดี๋ยวรอดูผู้เล่นก็ยังไม่เลือกที่จะใช้ด้วยครับ
ใช่ครับ คือเรียกว่าจ่าย2ในรอบที่ผ่านมาเนี่ยไม่มีมาเราบอกว่าจะดูเกมต่อเนื่องได้หรือไม่ครับสำหรับไบเจสไอเดียโจซอปเปอร์ของ
Okay.
พื้นที่ในการยิงเข้ามายังไม่มีคิวแล้วว่า
And they take heaven right away. Oh. No, he thought he dodged it. That's unfortunate. So this hold entirely depends on Sephiroth staying alive. John Olsen also taking on both is huge, but can we just check something? What does this replay music sound like in normal speed? I've been trying to figure that out every time it comes up.
แอคทีเวทมาหมดแล้วนะแต่ว่าไม่ได้สร้างอิมแพคอะไรกับเกมเท่าไหร่ครับแล้วกลายเป็นจอเซ่เดินเข้ามา
There's a lot more undertone, okay. Because all you hear in 2 times is the high tone. No, full sense is honestly pretty solid, which is not surprising. I mean, PTC had a bit of a up and down, but overall PTC's always been fairly consistent. John Olsen's always had some good shots. You know, overheats now and then, we're used to, but overall a strong duelist. Fox, honestly, in my opinion, Fox was one of the good initiators that Pacific's always had. And the Sushi Boys, solid. Leviathan's the only one that I didn't know much about prior, but
แต่ว่าโอ้โหน่าจะจ่ายสกิลกันมันมือนะโบยับแต่ข้างในหาใครไม่เจอเลยหรือเปล่าแล้วคิรัวก็แปะเหมือนไม่ตัดจอเส้นเป็นรู้ทันเลยเพราะว่ามาบ่อยเหลือเกินด้านหลังจากแฟนรอบนี้เสร็จเลยครับแล้วคิรัวกระโดดเช็คไปดิคิรัวกระโดดเช็คไปดิอะไรเจอเมื่อกี้มีเห็นมาได้ไม่โดนกันแรกแต่ว่าหลบได้แล้วเก็บไปก่อนจะโดนการเทป้า
the problem I would say Fox used to have is sometimes he would play a little too selfish or like a little too much for like cool plays now and then. But as a result of that, oftentimes he would have some really neat util usage and ideas. So as long as the team's on the same page, that can work out. Full sense have 2 IGLs calling together. Yeah, they just who is it? Fox and PTC, or is it Fox and Leviathan? That's not Leviathan. That's Leviathan. 2 entirely different things. Yeah, Fox and PTC. I mean, hey. No team at the top level should have a singular IGL doing all the calling anymore. There should always be at least a secondary. Depending on the team's dynamic, sure, you can have someone who's like the ultimate voice, and if they like make a conclusion, then you just follow it, sure, but Eco. Turret's still in B. The alarm bot set up late. It's destroyed. The idea was there to flood it. You know, buy a little more time with the poison clouds and start to file in one by one, have the paranoia. It's just Myth is one step ahead.
คอยเรียกว่าให้เพื่อนที่เข้ามาก่อนในจังหวะแรกเนี่ยในฝั่งซีไซด์เนี่ยเล่นได้ง่ายขึ้นครับ
เอาละ
เจครับตอนนี้มาแล้วครับขึ้นมาตีเสมอจนได้ครับที่สกอร์5 ต่อ 5ครับ2สุดท้ายก่อนสปาในราวที่11และราวที่12ครับ
ใช่ครับตอกย้ำครับที่ไซส์4ครับเรื่องการยิงบอลยิงล่างบอลที่เมื่อกี้ฟอกไปเฝ้าไปค่อยจับถูกที่ทุกครั้งเท่าไหร่ครับแต่ว่าก็ยังจะไม่ได้ครับหรือเหมือนจะมีปัญหาอะไรหรือเปล่าครับ
เอาละครับ
Fox is calling for a timeout.
มือครับเมื่อกี้
ยิงมานะครับเดี๋ยวรอดูครับคุณผู้ชมครับ5 ต่อ 5ครับและมีสลับภาพมาเนี่ยเดี๋ยวน่าจะว่าให้ทางทีมงานเนี่ยแก้ปัญหาสักเล็กน้อยนะครับ
ใช่ครับ
เทคนิคอลพอสครับ
เดี๋ยวทีมงานคุยชาร์จเรียบร้อย
Seems like he can't move to one side.
มีปัญหาอะไรหรือเปล่าย้ำครับที่ไซส์4ครับเรื่องการยิงบอลยิงล่างบอลที่เมื่อกี้ฟอกไปเฝ้าไปค่อยจับถูกที่ทุกครั้งเท่าไหร่ครับแต่ว่า
สปาในราวที่11และราวที่12ครับ
ใช่ครับตอกย้ำครับที่ไซส์4ครับเรื่องการยิงบอลยิงล่างบอลที่เมื่อกี้ฟอกไปเฝ้าไปค่อยจับถูกที่ทุกครั้งเท่าไหร่ครับแต่ว่าก็ยังจะไม่ได้ครับหรือเหมือนจะมีปัญหาอะไรหรือเปล่าครับ
เอาละครับรอดูก่อนนะฮะ
ยกมือครับเมื่อกี้
ยิงมานะครับเดี๋ยวรอดูครับคุณผู้ชมครับนี่นะครับหน้าเดิน
ก่อนหน้า
ไปในจังหวะ
พี่ให้มีที่สามนะแต่การที่ได้
Either way.
จะไม่ได้ดีในแบบที่ควรจะเป็นแล้วกันนะแต่ถ้าอย่างพี่เองเนี่ย
แฟนคลับเองนะครับหรือผู้ชมเองเนี่ยได้เข้ามาอยู่ในงาน
จริง
นักกีฬาก็ทำงานกันตรงนี้นะครับ
ฟูลเซตก็เป็นครับในรอบแกรนด์ไฟนอลของเราเลยครับอยากอยู่ที่โลตัสที่2ครับสถานการณ์ครับ5 ต่อ 5
เอาจนกลับมามีเสมอได้ด้วยเป็นแต่จังหวะนี้ด้านหน้าอยู่ที่ไหนมีการฟันกันต้องตีมาแล้วแล้ว3
Oh, that's a that is a nasty setup as well.
5 ต่อ 5
You let them come in and then you just trap them in rubble. Full Sense loves their trap plays. If Full Sense don't choke at Ascension Qualifier Series, they surely can be in Ascension. They look strong. Yeah. Oh, was it an audio issue? Yeah, maybe it's because he couldn't hear anything after the dizzy or something like that. So that's why he was walking around and jumping to see if he could continue hearing it.
กลับมาก็เซอร์ไพรส์จัดหนักจัดเต็มแบบนี้เห็นไม่ค่อยพอใจเท่าไหร่ครับเลือกที่จะเล่นเกมไวเข้ามาที่กองซ้ายครับต้องหนีเราไม่ก่อนกระดุมด้านหน้าหาอยู่ฮะมีใครหัวแผ่
You got Thrash, you got Showstopper. I mean, so does the enemy. Oh, dude. Wait, where did Foss's Thrash go? Oh, it missed. Oh, that feels bad. I mean, Kadum also holds them off real good with the Showstopper. Make sure that no one can follow the Thrash. It's a good Showstopper, even if it doesn't get a kill. Basically denies them any space they were hoping to get with the Thrash. Even if he had died. Or gotten hit, rather. Gotten detained.
เอามาจนได้ครับเรียกว่าเดินเกมไวมากครับสำหรับเกมของทางเอ็มไอเอสในราวสุดท้ายก่อนฝากฟังครับ
ใช่ครับเกมเร็วนี้ถือว่าได้ผลจริงๆครับเห็นครับแต่ว่าตะกอนสถานการณ์มาแบบนี้คุณผู้ชมยังไม่จบง่ายๆฮะต้องรอดูกันต่อในครึ่งหลังฮะ
Even if Sephiroth doesn't get those, I mean, they still had someone on site as well.
ในครึ่งหลังของเราตอนนี้สตาร์ทกันที่6 ต่อ 6ครับแล้วแผนที่นี้ต้องบอกเลยว่าสำคัญในเฮดมากๆนะครับจะเป็นออกไปตามแล้วตีด้านหน้าไม่รอจัดแต่ว่าจะเป็นคนเบรกไปก่อนแล้วมีกันที่รัวแล้วเบรกมาได้โอ้โหยอมเสียทั้งคู่กันเหมือนจะเป็นที่มันจะเสียเปรียบกว่าหรือเปล่าก็เลยเทดีแต่คนเดียว
The classic Lotus Pistol experience.
ทีก็นี่ฮะทีแกก็ใช่ครับไม่สำเร็จครับดาวแรกที่เขาตรงนี้ครับเอเวอเรสต์แล้วต้องบอกเลยว่าเทนี่ได้เปรียบ
Triple Guardian buy. Okay. I like it.
กลับมาคงจังหวะรอครับมีการเล่นไว
รอฮะรอด้วยความใจเย็น
ส่วนทางของฟูเซนเองนะครับก็ต้องหาข้อมูลก่อนเหมือนกันครับในจังหวะแรกเพื่อ
ราวที่2ของฟูเซนเพราะว่าเคยเสียมาเหมือนกันนะต้องบอกไปรอบนี้ต้องรัดกุมมากยิ่งขึ้นหรือเปล่าครับ
Good. Good smoke just to get in. Again, now with that little corner, that crossfire is what ruins a lot of teams as they try to get into C-site. Made in Thailand, individual skill looks insane, but their players coordinate kind of have to. The coordination has to improve a little bit. Oh, yeah, I would agree. I mean, individually, they all have moments for sure. I mean, Kadum's, I think, been at the top of the list for quite a few people for some time as well. CGRS has obviously proven it. I think all the other guys, they've all had like moments and highlights when I'm like, oh, this is a good play. Whether it's just aim or whether it's like decisions that they're making. But I think that's the biggest thing is like util usage, defaults, things like that. Full Sense just seems to be consistently ahead. So while Myth is able to like catch up in rounds, it's hard to be ahead. Did he buy this judge?
ไปกับ8 ต่อ 6 เลขนี้ฮะ2ราว
Did.
ทิ้งห่างอีกครั้งอย่าบอกนะว่าจะไปถึง3หรือเปล่าไปดูนะราวนี้จะเป็นไหมทีเดียวน้อยมากครับเป็น
ฝั่งนี้เอลิงเหมือนจะรู้แล้วต้องมีคนจองหน้าไปเลยที่ว่าช็อตตี้จะโดนได้ครับทีเออย่างนี้ก็เป็นทางให้ได้ฮะ
It's a good heads up shorty as well.
โดนไปก็มีนิ่งเหมือนกันช็อตตี้จอร์โดเต้แต่ว่ายังไม่หมดก๊อฟยังมีจัดของก๊อฟรออยู่เราไปถึง2ตัวเดียวก็มาดักแล้วครับ2ตัวเดียวครับเสียหายหลายแสนเลยยังไงเป็นก๊อฟสุดท้ายแล้วนะครับแต่โดนหลบตัวเข้ามาโดนรู้ตำแหน่งก๊อฟแบบนี้สกิลเรียกเพื่อนเลยครับ3 ต่อ 1
ครับยิงกันมาเนี่ยจังหวะสุดท้าย1 ต่อ 3ตัวผู้เล่นกับเซฟรอสคนสุดท้ายแล้วนี่ก็ทางขอไปได้ครับ
ไอเดียนะฮะ
แต่ว่ารอบนี้ครับตัดสินใจการเข้าทำที่ฝั่งของดีไซน์แล้วจะเอาเส้นที่เอาช็อตตี้ไปเปิดเกมทางลุมก่อนได้ในฝั่งนี้ในและสำคัญกว่าคือ2คิวที่กระชัดในการเบรกการรีเทคพื้นที่คืนของ MIJ ครับ
ต้องทำได้ที่อ่านไปเป็น9 ต่อ 6 กับ3
What's the final scoreline for this map?
ที่เราได้เกิดไปนะครับในช่วงแรกแอบกังวลใจเหมือนกันเพราะว่าฝั่งมานี่ฟูเซนอาจจะทำได้ดีหรือเปล่าในฝั่งที่ได้เปรียบอยู่60-40แล้วเปิดมาเขาทำได้
Because if mid loses this, that's where the nail goes in the coffin. See how they go into Seaside again? Oh, well they're just gonna get the kill before they go in. It's a bit of an unfortunate peek out by Sephiroth here. Because he was already not holding. I think it's he peeks. Well, no, surely he peeks out because he suspects they could have gone through. But he's checking this and he's like, okay, well, there's no one on that side of mound. But the thing is at this point, oh, that's not what I meant to do. Like, you are going to always be at a disadvantage. So it's a bit of a risky play there. Because of that kill, they're just gonna swarm in without covering waterfall initially. What team do you think is the most tough to fight in tier 2 within Pacific?
แม่เพิ่งชมไปเมื่อกี้นะครับแม่เอาให้ผมเลยนะเขินหน่อยไม่เป็นไรฮะยังเหลือเพื่อนอีก4อีลัวจะยอมปล่อยเรานี่ไปหรือเปล่าไม่เห็นกับเต็ม3กระบอกอะไรอย่างงี้
ต้องครับถึงจะเรียกว่าถ้าเกิดจะตัดสินใจการเซฟจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยนะฮะคือได้ปืนกลับไปก็จริงนะแต่วินที่เสียไปทางจะซับฝั่งเนี่ยผมว่าเป็นปัญหา
I haven't watched much of Boom, but I mean, I think Full Sense has to be discussed for that list. Naos, I also have a lot of hopes for, but Naos definitely seems much more about microplays and mechanics. Again, not to say that they're like not playing as a team, but Full Sense definitely just seems to have a better understanding of maps and fundamentals as a team. I don't think any team in Japan has shown that consistently enough for me to put them at. Not to say that they can't win, but and same with Korea. I'd have to check Boom a little bit, but I mean, if I had to just do a tier list off the top of my head right now, I'd probably put like Full Sense and Naos at the top. Not having watched much of Boom, but it's probably like Boom. And then, I mean, assuming we can only pick one team from each region, then Boom and maybe Fennel. Maybe just Boom in tier 2 and then in the second tier, and then like Fennel and D+ in the third tier, maybe. Well, actually, I would actually almost put I would consider well D+. I'd have to watch a bit more. They're looking better than I thought they would. But Nongshim is actually impressing me more right now. Maybe I would put, if it was Nongshim, I might put Nongshim alongside Boom. I think it's because they have tier 1 players like Fox and Sushi. Yeah, no, absolutely. I would think so, right? Just like the calls, the instinct, things like that. To have that experience is huge. I mean, look at, and this is what I was going to say. If you look at Revenant, I would actually think, you know, Revenant's pretty strong in that regard as well. That's a good shot. Revenant's overall fundamentals and timings and understanding of map and utility and space taken is pretty good too. And a big part of that is thanks to Severine, right? I mean, you saw that with Team I Am in Korea for the 2 matches that Zest was in.
landing เลยนะครับ
เหมือนแบบว่ามีใครเป็นสะกิดเขาสะดุ้ง
The calls, the utility, all of it, much cleaner. Curious to see how IM will look this week. Now that it's again, I mean, a week is a very short time, but see if they continue to improve. I hope so. I'm excited for the Team IM project, but
บีไซด์มาไว้ก่อนครับเรียบร้อยครับอย่างน้อยเนี่ยคือบีบให้ทางฟูลเซนครับต้องเลือกทางเดินครับถ้าเกิดจะไม่ฝืนเข้าบีเนี่ยก็ต้องไปเอไม่ก็ตีนะครับมีแค่สองทางเท่านั้นนะ
ไม่นานเกินรอครับใกล้ๆเดี๋ยวรอดูเลยฮะว่าจะเกิดอะไรขึ้นครับสำคัญทั้งคู่ฮะบีซีพยายามจะหาหน้าเอรุก่อนบีซีมาโอ้โหแต่ว่าเปิดตีเขาจริงๆมาบีเจอถึง2เป้าไม่ได้ยิงใครก่อนเนี่ยเสียงเอดีแซนเลยครับบีซีได้คิว
เราดูครับเจสับจังหวะแบบนี้เขาสกิลทางช่วยให้เราทำสกิลได้1คิวจะได้ไป1เล่นก่อนฟูลเซนไหลทะลุมาแล้วนะครับจะเปิดวิธีการเล่นให้กับเกมบุก
and this was always going to be a play to eventually. Wait, how did? Oh, this kind of creeps in, gets tagged by the alarm bot. Okay.
ใช่ครับเร่งเครื่องหน่อยครับจอเส้นเดินมาแบบสับๆไวๆเข้ามาแล้วมีบิ๊กแมนจากบล็อกตรงนี้แล้วมีแพนติ้งออกมาเรียบร้อยการดูปล่อยบูบอลยังไงกันแล้วเห็นหางตายิงแจ้งเพื่อน
You have lockdown. CJRS defending it with his life. Good retake. Good defense of the lockdown. Another timeout from Full Sense.
ไม่เหลือเลยฮะ
They hold. Oh, this is a. It's a very aggressive hit by Myth. I don't think Full Sense read this at all. I don't think they were expecting this at all. I think they thought it was going to be another contention for Rubble. But it's a pinch from B and C. Well done too. That's the thing, is that with the mechanics that you have and the players you have, Myth, like the micro plays are good. It's just the overall game plan is always a step behind Full Sense overall, but onto the box. Oh, and that allows him to get in. Oh, no, not like this. So Leviathan ignoring the Omen, that's good. Still a 3-4. He's trying to fish for the Omen, but doesn't want to risk it anymore. Gets spammed out. Kunz is going to get that kill. It's a good kill, but they've been sitting in this decay, so Kadim and Kunz are both very low. Klua eventually comes in. PTC. Oh, man. I mean, it's Viper's Pit. Last year was Blaze King and Boom Esport. Yes, Severine and Blaze King were both in Boom Esport. Severine now part of Revenant in South Asia, and Blaze King, of course, part of Global Esports. But they were close. They were close to getting to the finals for Ascension. All right, let's go to map 3, Icebox. Full Sense, Harbor Viper, Myth, Viper Sage.
เริ่มต้นกันที่แผนที่ตามเสียงฟูเซนครับถ้า MID ทำได้ในไอบอลครับถึงจะมีแอสเซนนั่นเองครับ
เริ่มดูกันทีละราวเลยครับเริ่มกันในส่วนของพิซซ่าราวก่อนครับในช่วงต้นเกมแผนที่ไอซ์วอล์กแบบนี้
Good use of the window. Bait and switch play here. Still can see over that, I believe, through the window.
มีการเซตอัพเอาไว้ตั้งแต่ในช่วงต้นวาล์วแล้วเลยครับจากทางของ KNTZ
So Full Sense has no reason to move anywhere. They're playing B for delay and retake. They can always flood it from mid. Same with A. So they have full mid control. Any late lurkers on Myth, they're trying to fish for that. Now Myth correctly also, because there's been nothing, just like they just cut all noise, right? They just don't use anything. Just creep up. They're gonna use their first piece of utility here to clear out potential potential nano swarms. The snake bite is gonna buy enough time. Draws out the recon as well. But Full Sense, they're not gonna fill the site, which is fine because the plant still hasn't gone through. The wall's gonna come up. They'll try to break it, but of course it's pistol round, so you basically can't. Yeah, you're just gonna cut it up until backup arrives. Oh, Sushi Boys is still waiting for the lurk, which he's not wrong about. It's just not in that direction yet. Okay, make sure that they can't peek out of green. Make sure you can try to take over yellow. But a lot of you guys are getting bopped here. They just didn't account for the box. Yeah, but if Sushi Boy just gets a double... Oh. They should have won this. Hold on, where Leviathan is? He's holding. Oh, he's like not sure if he's gonna peek out from the cubby or not, so he's just not watching the cascade. Okay, so this is a scenario where it's fine if you're concerned about the cascade. But in most scenarios, while looking that way, you should have moved here, right? So it should have just been a strafe over here. That way you're always being able to see both entry points. That's unfortunate. You think Myth had a better icebox? Find out. Early break on the turret. Oh, do they get the orb on A as well? Yes. They see no countering utility, so they just immediately full rotate to B. They took out the mid turret as well. So full sense, feeling pretty good about this. John Olsen has a Marshall. They're looking for a shot. They see the wall come on, they're just like, just don't do anything about it, right? See that there's two. This is good. Was a good attempt from full sense, but it's also good for Myth. They don't panic. They don't over panic. I like that Myth puts up the wall and they just kind of wait to see. Especially as that harbor wall comes up, they're like, well, we don't want to risk that because the way peeking out from yellow to support that would be very risky. So they wait. Sephiroth plays around that box very well. Still have both Sync Bites, both Nano Swarms. Yep, the post plant should be flying in. No time. The jump up onto the wall before the plant. That was huge. Full sense constantly pushing for that orb. The thing is they get the orb, then they back out. Now, Myth, do they have a read on this because of last time? Because everyone was on B site. They heard the orb being taken, I believe. Yes, they do. So they re-clear it. It's good read from Myth. Full sense is going to rotate faster than I would have imagined. They'll try to flood it with numbers, but slow orb, it's a little too good. (4-0), 3 ults. So this time you force the issue on the orb. Full sense. They'll plant the op on B, and then they'll rotate over. Alarm bot gives you a little bit of a sign. The nanoswarms, you kind of just have to pop on a timer here, so they will pop it on a timer. Kadoom's just gonna walk through though. Just eats the decay, goes up. The thing is, they kind of hear him. They can't get Sushi Boys. He knows that Sushi Boys was on the ground, and Sushi Boys gets 3. That was not supposed to. This round was not supposed to go this way. Huh. Wait, who's... Okay, Fox is all... Ah, pushes them all back too. So Sushi Boys peeks out off of that. I see some people were seeing Full Sense are the favorites to win this year's Ascension. I mean, I don't think you can fault them for that. Just purely because... I think John Olsen and PTC have been 2 players that have always been discussed when talking about Thai Valorant. Personally, I feel John Olsen needs a little bit more consistency for me to consider like always discussing him, but so far it looks good this year. And then you have Fox and Sushi Boys, who are honestly 2 very, very solid pillars of the old, you know, Talon / Xerisha core. So it wouldn't be surprising at all. I mean, I would favor them as well. I would favor them as well. Obviously, again, across different sub-regions, it's hard to get relative power or to gauge relative power, so we'll have to wait and see, but I think they're absolutely in the list of favorites for sure. That they are the dominant favorite. We'll have to wait and see as the year goes on, but Ascent, the map? I mean, listen, I'm kind of okay with it. I know it can seem boring because the comps are the same, but I've said this before. I kind of like having a map like that in the pool where it's like, okay, well, we all know the most standard way to play. We know, like, everybody knows the textbook. It's an open book quiz. Now go, right? I think it's okay to have one map like that. It was a little rough when Haven was also in them, because, I mean, Haven went through more comp changes than Ascent, but at the end of the day, like, Haven always ended up settling pretty hard on a certain meta comp as well. And every map has a meta comp, but, I mean, I guess Lotus is kind of there, but Lotus has just enough changes, differences between teams, I feel. But back then, with Haven and Ascent, it was like, well, here we go, like Haven Ascent, the same comps, same maps, every match, and it started to get a little bit boring, but with just Ascent, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm kind of okay with it. I don't know if you should like, I think it's okay to have a map where a certain comp is like the comp to play. Because then now and then the unique comps will get very exciting. Oh, Kadoom's going to try to single-handedly open this up. Except he dies, but he does buy enough time. But they won't get it. But yeah, I think it's okay to have that one map where it's like, okay, well, everybody knows like what you're supposed to do, so let's just see, like, because that's a map where you can really see both like pure individual skill and then also just prep and mid-rounding. So to me, it's kind of nice to have one map like that. Because I don't want, like, if all the maps become like this color versus that color is then it's kind of like, it's cool to have moments like that, and it's cool to have maps that have continuous meta evolution. But you know, when it comes to like a grand final and things like that, it is nice to have one map where it's like, ooh, like, who's really on top? But it can be, listen, it can feel boring. Like, I've had times where I'm like, oh, Ascent again, especially if it's not between here's the thing, if it's not between the 2 best teams in the world, sometimes Ascent can feel boring, right? Or if it's not between like the top 4 teams in the world, sometimes Ascent can feel boring. But when you get that ascent match between the very best teams,
ใช่ แล้วไปต่อยากเลย
oh, there's nothing quite as exciting in my opinion.
ค่อนข้างจะเรียกว่ามีแผนกับเกมแต่การที่ยิงกับพื้นแล้วก็เบรกเอาไว้ได้ในมุมเฮ้ยทีมต้องเดินเพื่อเปิดปิดมุมดึงความได้เปรียบครับ
ถูกต้องครับไม่ว่าที่แทบจะโดนแคนเซิลเลยนะเพราะว่าใน YBC เนี่ยทำงานมาแล้วมีถึง2อันเลยทีเดียวครับในการเบรกจังหวะแพนติ้งฮะดูครับท้ายๆของเลเวอร์ทานวางพลาด
But that's from a very like coach / analyst / IGL POV.
แต่ยังไม่ได้มีคิวอะไรเกิดขึ้นครับ
แล้วนี่มีเช็คมาเจอ1 CGIS เอาโดนสักครู่แต่ว่าสำคัญคือเยลโล่นะฮะที่เอาสเปคไม่ได้ไม่เห็นจะรู้ว่าจะสำเร็จหรือเปล่าครับ
But in some ways, I would say that's now on the casters to make that just as exciting for everybody watching. In my opinion. Dude, what is this wall just to get on top of yellow? He dashes up and then he drops down. And then you just go up just to clear again. Huh. Really? So you just want full control of yellow. Seager's dies for that.
นาทีครับแต่เกมที่แรกเพื่อเอาในฝั่งที่มาให้ได้กินที่ไปฝั่งของมีเยลโล่ก่อนครับกันเลยมาตรงเล่นเหลือเท่ากันนะครับ4-4ใส่กันเข้ามา
Oh, and that yellow that you fought so hard for, you've now given up. Not the greatest of rounds from Myth. Well, yeah, and then you still get some teams that cook a little bit, right? Loud cooks with all the flashes. And right now, I would say there's just enough teams that want to still try the double controller, the Viper Omen or the Viper Astra, things like that. You know, Cypher Killjoy, slight changes there as well. So I would actually say there's just enough. But I think the point is Ascent is a map where it's like, no matter what you say, every other comp's going to feel like a pocket comp, right? Every other comp's going to feel like a niche comp, where the meta comp is like the way to play it. But in some ways, again, that's kind of exciting because that means if someone's bringing a pocket comp, they're banking on the surprise factor to win. So does it work or not? Like, time to find out. And that is even a bigger test for the team that's using the meta comp of like, okay, well, your comp can, in theory, it can really fight against anything and everything. So now it's up to you. Can you adapt fast enough or not? So I'm okay with it. I used to want like Ascent out of the map pool for a little bit, or you know, things like that, but I think I'm okay with it. The other thing is a map like that, eventually at some point there's gonna be an agent that comes out that not only like, it's not just like a, well, we change, for instance, like let's say it's the new agent. It's not like a, well, Clove for Omen, all right, it continues. It's not gonna be like that. There's gonna be an agent that comes out that changes the entire comp on a map like that. Yeah, I figure that they're gonna come up with something new. We'll see.
หรือไปต่อครับในการบุกพวกเขายังมีโอกาสได้ถึง8ถ้าทำได้จะเป็นสกอร์ที่มากกว่าที่เขาเจอกันในบอลนี้ด้วยถูกต้องครับต้องเรียกว่าดึงต้นเกมกลับมาให้ได้มากที่สุดเลยครับในแผนที่ผมเลือกเองด้วยนะสำหรับแบบไอซ์บอลกับ VRJS และสำคัญกว่าคือเป็นแผนที่เรียกว่าฟูลเซนต้องทำมากเหมือนกันในการปิดเกมในซีรีส์นี้ถูกต้องครับแต่ไม่ง่ายอย่างที่คิดครับดูว่ากระดุมสำคัญเลยครับดูว่าต่อมาก็ยังแข็งสู้ครับ
Okay, trap set up with the alarm bot over the box as well. Now the Viper down and the wall gone. Suddenly your comp's feeling a little weak. You didn't have any control of A. Did have a little control of mid, but John Olsen, oh, such a dangerous position. Oh my gosh, he's gonna fight for this. He's trying, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I thought they wouldn't have enough time. He's trying to just buy just enough time with the Blaze Storm here. But Sijera sticks it. Man, the trust he has in Kahlua is crazy. Necessary, but crazy.
คือด้วยตัวของเซตอัพหรือว่าอะไรต่างๆก็ยังไม่ได้มีดาเมจเพียงพอที่จะทำให้ DC เนี่ยต้องออกจากพื้นที่ตรงนี้ไปนะครับแต่ว่ามันก็เป็นจุดเช็คพอยต์สำคัญเลยครับที่ MH จะเลือกตีไฟบีนะครับไม่ได้เยลโล่หรือการเข้าเยลโล่แล้วเขาเสียหนึ่งเนี่ยโอ้ไม่ทำให้การปิดสกอร์ยากมากแล้วเกิดโอ้โหแล้วฟอกถูกครับฟอกแบบทีละนัด2นัดเท่านั้นเดินมาแบบว่า
ฟูเยลโล่ตั้งนานเนี่ยคนนี้ยืนอยู่ไกลเลยครับโดแมนจับได้ครับฟอก
มีมาอีกแบบนี้ดีๆโอ้โหสบายใจเกินแล้วดูให้ตัวเองเล่นก็ได้เดินออกมาครับ
Oh.
ทำให้การปิดสกอร์ยากมากแล้วเกิดโอ้โหแล้วฟอกถูกครับฟอกแบบทีละนัด2นัดเท่านั้น เดินมาแต่ว่า
ตูเยลโล่ตั้งนานเนี่ยคนนี้ยืนดูไกลเลยครับโดแมนจัดได้ครับฟอง
ปีมาอยู่แบบดีๆยิงโอ้โหสบายใจเฉิบสบายใจเฉิบแล้วตัวเองกล้าเล่นก็น่าจะเล่น
Oh, the harbor high tide plus the lockdown
สบายใจเฉิบแล้วตัวเองกล้าเล่นก็น่าจะแต่ว่า
ตูเยลโล่
and the recon as well, right?
ปีมาอยู่แบบดีๆยิงโอ้โหสบายใจเฉิบสบายใจ
Oh, that's a good push from PTC.
พยายามจะเคลียร์ที่เยลโล่แล้วสไปค์มันบล็อกตรงนี้
And that's the spike.
การมองเห็นไปด้วยครับจะให้ตอนนี้สำหรับเราท้ายในเกมของไฟมาเชียร์จะไปที่ไอซ์สองจังหวะการเดินดูแล้วครับเข้าสู่ช่วง30 วินาทีครับก่อนในราวนี้นะ
โอ้โหแล้วเหมือนจะไปไม่เกินนี้หรือเปล่าแล้วเดี๋ยวนะ6 ต่อ 6
And this is
เราคุ้นเคยแต่ว่าเดี๋ยวบอกอย่าเพิ่งด่วนตอนลงไปได้ประธานให้2หัวคมบาร์ครับ
Yep, that should be the end. 6-6 though. Man, all of these were very close halves.
ต้องทำให้ได้ครับเอ็มไอเชียร์ในการไปต่อแผนครับผม
จะจบอย่างไรมาลุ้นกันเพื่อสุดท้ายหรือเปล่า MIT ครับ
ต้องทำให้ได้ครับเอ็มไอเชียร์ในการไปต่อแผนที่แอสเซนครับ
Good lineup. You don't have to go all the way over.
ทีมนึงครับเพื่อที่จะเป็นแชมเปี้ยนครับในรายการนี้ตัวเองครับต้องต่อชีวิตตัวเองนะครับไปลุ้นกันในแผนที่หน้าเลยครับ
ต่อครับเนี่ยมาเริ่มกันที่พิโซวาก่อนเลยครับสลับมาครับตูเซนเป็นฝ่ายบุกกันบ้างครับ
ร้อยกระโดดสแตปเช็คมาแต่ว่าจังหวะ2จะเอาเส้นสวนออกแล้วเฮดก่อนเตอร์ลิฟ
Wall to isolate the angle. It was a 1v1. So it's just a matter of who got the shots. John Olsen does. Draws out enough information. Main force going into A. Kuntz is going to look to try to delay, but
สไลด์ยาวนะสไลด์ยาวแบบไม่ไหวก็ไม่มีช็อป
พิโซวาเนี่ยคือถอยกลับไปรอมาแบบ
ก็ได้
ฟูเซนครับได้มาในรอบที่3ครับคือนำไปที่7 ต่อ 6ก่อนนะ
ใช่ครับเสียหายต่อเนื่องหรือเปล่าครับ
so after a quick 1-4, it's another 1-4. Started in mid to B.
มาเชลลั่นมาแบบนี้
Myth has mid control. PTC ready for this. Oh, well, he knows where one of them are. He's just trying to stay alive. He doesn't want to give over that weapon. As long as he plays for time, as long as his team plays for time, they'll be okay, and that is exactly what they do. Do they get the bonus as well? This started off as like a 4-0, right?
น่าจะต้องหาการวิธีการเดินเกมตั้งรับครับเกมตัวเองของฝั่งฟูเซนให้ได้ก่อนเพื่อดึงความได้เปรียบในช่วงต้นราวนะไหลมาครับดูฮะตามภาพเลยครับรออยู่แล้วนะฮะรออยู่แล้วแล้วจะจังหวะพลิกออกมาครับ
Yeah, well, they checked that there's 2 in mid. Pushed a little bit of green control. No, one more was there as well.
เข้าสู่40 วินาทีครับทางของฟูเซนนะไล่มาดูผู้เล่นก่อนนะครับในทางของฟ็อกซ์กับเคดิซ่าครับ
So you know the location of 3 people are new. So then they re-clear. Seeing that they backed out, they feel safe with the plant. Good kill from Kadum. Again, just playing for time. Is KO good without lineups? I heard analysis said that KO could be a good agent if player can play Flash Molly with lineups. Well, so KO is... KO's fine. KO's okay without lineups, like in solo queue. But KO's lineups are insanely, like, really make him so much stronger. But the thing is his flash drive lineups, his flash lineups require a lot of good teamwork. So you're going to want really good comms with that. But Molly lineups is the same with anybody, right? Like your mollies will have value, but if you have lineups to break, you know, killjoy ults and things like that, then you can do it from even safer distances, so it will be even stronger. But his flashes, like it's fine without crazy lineups, but the lineups you can do to make them really amazing pop flashes are so good. And the same with 0 Point, the fact that you can like help check the entire other side of the map with good lineups makes him like a semi-global agent. So again, depending on your rank and your comms in solo queue, even without the lineups, it's okay. Like I think he's fine. I think he still has some really good strengths just baseline, but his strength gets amplified a lot with lineups. Do you think teams will ever pick Primy? Who is Primy? The best aimer in APAC?
เ ครับเหลือแค่คนเดียวสุดท้ายกับซูชิบอยเหนือจากในฝั่งนี้รู้แล้วครับเป็นเชนครับว่าซูชิบอยยังคงติดอยู่ที่บริเวณ B ไซด์ครับ
Oh, Primy was part of
ซูชิบอยไปแล้วตามกลับมาที่8-9อ่ะ
ใช่ครับอย่าเพิ่งถอดใจกันไปนะครับโอ้ยเกดีแซ
Primy was part of the X-God #1 team, huh?
3ได้ครับที่บริเวณเยลโล่ครับ
ใช่ครับแล้วก็ฮันเตอร์บุรีของพิก้ามาที่ทันเวลาด้วยนะครับอ่ะ8-9
ดูกันทีละ
Darn shame that squad.
ใช่ครับ
ต้องทำให้ได้ไปที่ไอซ์ฟอร์
I mean, I don't know much
อันยากาเต้ด้านหน้า
about Primy.
ไล่มุมก่อนนะจอห์นโอเซนแล้ว1-2ไม่ยังไงได้1 เสีย1ฟอสเสียไปถือล้อเช่นกันกับของทางฝั่ง MIT กระดุม
But I think there's a world. The thing is, here's the thing with Pacific is that to some extent it applies in EMEA as well, but it applies even more in Pacific. Is language barrier is always going to be the tough part, right? So unless you basically, here's the thing is that, and it's always going to basically come back to English. Not that you have to comment English, but unless you can speak basic English and common English to at least get the potential conversation started, or you know, whichever other language that you're like looking to get into their teams, your choices are so limited, right? That's the rough part about Pacific talent, is that your path to grow is very limited. So I don't know about Primy, but yeah, exactly. English isn't as common in Asia, whereas like obviously in Americas generally you're kind of accepting because it's either, you know, the bulk of North America or, you know, South America. So English is still fairly common enough. There's also just like a lot of North American teams, etc. But even in EMEA, like basic English and common and basic English is still common enough, except for a few key regions and such. So it's always tougher. But the thing is yeah, so like you look at a Chinese team picking up RB, sure. But again, it's if a player can prove that, hey, I'm committed to learning the language enough, or like that I can, etc. Sure. But the other thing with RB is you look at RB and the chance they're taking RB is even without comms, he has so much experience that his individual decision making and his agent pool is like gonna be enough for the first year, and then that will buy enough time for him to learn the language. Like that's what you're aiming for, right? And I would say you are entirely correct. But if you are just really good, if you're just really cracked mechanically, but you can't comm in the same language, it's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing because your decision making isn't proven. I mean, it could be good, but we just won't ever know. So you have to prove it some other way. And that's unfortunate. I mean, that's tough, right? Especially for instance, like Thai players, it's like unless you can speak English or Chinese or Japanese, right? Or, you know, I guess even Korean, since we do have 3 Korean squads. You only have one Thai team in VCT, right? In Tier 1. So that's like your only shot. And if they don't want to swap any players, then you don't have a shot. So it's a lot harder, I think, for Pacific to get like more diverse Tier 2 growth. I think it'll change over time. But yeah. And I would say, like, if you're in a Pacific region and you want to expand your opportunities, then I would say other than English, if you're like, well, English, like, I don't know, or I know some basic English, like, honestly, if you just want, not counting China, then probably your best bet actually is just basic Japanese and or Korean, just because there's 3 Korean teams. Granted, T1's common in English, right? Just like pure opportunity comparison. And then Japanese, just because, again, like lots of fandom, but not as much Tier 2 talent pool and mechanics, etc. And the thing is you don't have to like be able to speak like fluently, etc., etc. Like your team may even end up comming in English, but if you can prove that I can get along enough with the team and discuss basic things in the native language, then that's a good start, right? It makes, like, if I was management of a team, that would make me consider just a bit more if I want to bring you in or not. So But yeah, I mean, listen, if he's that cracked, I really hope so. I would hope so.
บ้านเอเบเดบอกว่าอย่างนี้ยังมีความหวังนะยังมีลุ้นนะผมบอกเลย
Yeah, I mean, with bleed, that's a big thing, right? Is just
ได้คืนกลับมาในแผนที่นี้นะฮะ
at this point.
แม็กซี่
เจอร่างบอลเลยตอนนี้ภาพเริ่มแบบว่าซ้ำรอยกัน KD แท็กกับ PC ตอนนี้การเอา KD แท็กไม่ลงเหมือนกันตัวแรกเปิดไม่ได้เยลโล่เขียว
How many people on that team are native speakers
แต่สุดท้ายก็ยังเอา PC ไปด้วยอีกนะครับ
ผู้ชมครับมาดูครับหลังจากมีคอนเมาส์
or comfortable enough? Really, only
เอาละสิ
นะครับเนื่องจากว่าทางฟูเซนเองเนี่ยนะครับก็ไปเสีย2 วิต่อเนื่องแหละนะครับให้กับ
well, I guess yeah, I guess 3 again, but you know.
พอมาเป็นในสถานการณ์แบบนี้แล้วจะมีแผนในการเดินเกมกันว่าพวกเขาเองก็มีการ
It's always tough. It's always tough.
ใช่ครับแต่ว่าเหมือนจะมีถึงก็พอนะครับท่านผู้ชมครับอดใจรอให้อีกนิดเดียวนะในการตัดสินที่3นี้นะไอ้บอกครับว่าจะตกเป็นของใครกันที่บอกครับว่าคุณได้ปิดการแข่งขันตัวนี้แล้วไปแชมป์ทันทีนะฮะแต่ว่าถ้าเอเวอเรสต์ได้นะครับจะมีแอสเซทที่เราได้ดูกันอีก
Oh, this is cool though. It's packed. You'll love to see it.
ด้วยนะครับที่กำลังทำแข่งขันอยู่บนสเตจในรวมถึงนะครับท่านผู้ชมทุกท่านที่รับชมอยู่ทุกช่องทางออนไลน์นะครับทางออนไลน์กับ
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Is that the thing is I think basic comms. The thing is I think basic comms in a game of Valorant.
ได้แบบร่วมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งจริงๆนะครับ กลับบ้านนะ
If you're willing to put in the effort and you aren't like exceptionally bad at learning a language, you can pick up like quick enough as you go. It will be stressful, but it's something that you can be like, I'm willing to learn. But the thing is if you can't speak anything outside of like your calls in game, then like you said, then the chemistry is also just not going to be as good, and that's pretty important. So yeah. And listen, it's like, I'm not saying like certain languages are better and whatnot. It's just, listen, if you're looking for an opportunity, you just kind of have to look at the realistic situation of what gives me the best chances. And I would say within Pacific, it's going to be English, and then just because of sheer number, Korean and Japanese. Or like basic Chinese if you are considering VCT China as well as an option. But the thing is if you learn English, like there is a off chance that you could be recruited for EMEA or Americas too, right? So like opportunity wise, like that is probably what you should be spending your time on outside of Valorant. If you really think that you absolutely deserve an opportunity, that's you're gonna need that.
แน่นอนครับก็ต้องประมาณนี้ได้ครับตัวของฟูเซนเองเนี่ยนะฮะก็น่าจะมีแผนการปฏิบัติที่เตรียมพร้อมมาแล้วครับ
เซฟรอด
ครับเด็กไบเนี่ยจะตีกันจังหวะไม่ให้ครับรอดูครับเดินตีเป้าเหมือนจะเปลี่ยนเป็นซิงเกมเล็กน้อยครับสำหรับเกมของฝั่งฟูเซนครับเดินขวาแล้วโดนเส้นกับฝั่งเซนไปก่อนจะเฟิร์สเดียว
เจอกับสโนว์แมนด้านหลังแล้วล้วงมาลึก
Oh, it's gonna end here. Oh, there's I mean man, the fact that Full Sense is playing a full spread post plant, but because of their high tide, they actually can. It's really, really important dash there by John Olsen. Otherwise, he dies. Like Myth just has to push either separately or like really quickly. Man, it's really funny how just a small slight changes on the B side has really started encouraging pushing into Snowman and post plant a lot. ได้วินมาในราวแบบนี้ไงฮะ MITS ครับเอามาดูครับว่าราวที่3จะสามารถกลับมาได้เปล่านะเพราะว่านี่คือแชมเปี้ยนชิพพอยต์ของทีมในราวครับ
เอาละฮะตอนนี้เหลือแค่อีกหนึ่งใจครับนิดเดียวแล้วเฟิร์สคิวเป็นของจอห์นโอเซดีครับโอ้โห
ครับไม่ได้ต่อมาดีเป็นด้านหน้าเกมใช้ไว้แล้วครับมาต้องเป็นประตูที่ให้ได้มากที่สุดก่อนมีอะไรให้ล็อกดาวน์ได้จนมาบนกระเพราทีมบอยครับแต่เกิดคิวจอยพีซีบ้านทีเดียวเป็นร้อยบาท
ทำอะไรก็ดูดีไปหมดครับพีซีตอนนี้ครับทุกเซนล็อกดาวน์อีก1 วินาทีครับเพื่อที่จะเข้าไปเอาสเปซในไซส์ A พร้อมกับสไปค์ปักลงเป็นที่เรียบร้อยเล่นเก็บกวาดแล้วต่อจากประตูเดินเข้ามาหาเบสตอมเดินสายตีครับกีด้านหน้าจอเส้นที่โลมาเทคือจอห์นเสียไป2กันครับสำหรับ MITS
Don't have much of it. Oof. I mean, this year, many teams from other region come to their team. Pretty much, if you compare, we have like cross-region imports. Yeah, well, a lot more this year. But the thing is, again, like this is only the second year of VCT, so I think like imports in, grow your own regions, etc. It's just going to be a natural process. The thing is, there's always going to be a limit to imports, and especially for coaching staff, it's like if you don't have a good history of coaching in TAC FPSs in your region, like listen, you lose nothing by bringing in an import coach, because if they can teach it to their players, those players could now later become coaches in their mother tongue, et cetera, et cetera. So, right, like that's the only way you're gonna get it is by having a little bit of someone else to like challenge you and learn from and watch from and things like that. So, I think it's a good step. I think it's a good step for Pacific. But okay, so overall full sense. I mean, I think they continue to remain as strong, like one of the strong favorites for Ascension for Pacific. I'm curious on I mean, personally, curious to see how Korean teams will do. Because last year, I did not think D Plus would do well last year, and they did not. But whether it's D Plus, whether it's Nongshim, I'm kind of, listen, I'm really starting to lean into the whole Yeoman train. Who do they have left? Sherpa, this will be a big test. Oh, they do have the big tests left, all the big tests, which actually works out for Nongshim. They've had the time to kind of warm up against some of the weaker teams. Now it's all the big teams left for Nongshim. Sherpa, LFG, and DK. So, listen, if they can win 2 out of those 3 games for Nongshim, I'm all in on the Nongshim train. I want my Shin Ramyun at Ascension. Is Zeta Crow an analyst coach or something? Looks like he takes care of Hero and Yura. Yeah, he's there as a coach. I mean, he's also trying to learn to coach, but as far as I know, Vor's the old academy coach, now the Riddle coach, Team Riddle coach. Used to be the academy coach, but Vor's used to help a lot with bringing up the academy players, but also helped a lot with Crow's like mental game and how to like, you know, stay focused and keep his composure, et cetera, and his training routine, things like that. And I think Crow's now trying to take on that role and learn to coach better. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what his coaching style is going to become, but this is the first year that he's doing it, right? So I think he's bringing in his experience as a player, as an ex-IGL and things like that, and now trying to help, you know, be a coach and someone that can really relate a lot to the younger players as well. And I think that's good. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see if he can make something of it. Obviously, playing and leading and coaching are very different things. So yeah, no, it's a very good step, and it's an excellent opportunity for Crow to be able to go into a coaching staff where now you've brought in an import coach from Brazil, and then you still have Junior, who also basically had a year under XQQ to kind of grow into it. So you've got them to kind of work alongside. They still have another analyst as well, and then you've got Crow. So he has his strengths in that he was a player until most recently. So, and then learning how do I translate that into coaching is a big step. And I think that's a very good step for him. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can see it from the players. Like he can imagine what's going on from the players' POV a lot more directly for sure. So yeah, I mean, I kind of hope Crow grows as a really good coach. I think that'd be so big for Japan. I think it would be so big for Japan. Korea's missing a lot of that too. And we'll see. Okay. It is 6 p.m. Chat, I think we're going to end it here for today. Obviously, there's tons of other VODs that we can look at, but I need to eat dinner and then spend some time today to whip up our videos for this week that I want to upload for YouTube, because tomorrow I'm kind of out for most of the day as well. And then tomorrow there's no stream. Wednesday and Thursday we will co-stream Challengers Korea. But Thursday night after Challengers Korea, again, I'm hoping to hear back. Actually, let me check right now. Maybe we've heard during the stream about Masters Madrid. So if I can do that, then we'll just chain it right into Masters Madrid. But if not, we'll just do Challengers Korea, and then we'll continue with VOD reviews of Masters. So I haven't heard back yet, but that's going to be the plan. So obviously Wednesday and Thursday we'll have longer streams for the entirety of Challengers Korea and maybe Masters Madrid. But for today, we'll end the stream here. I'm looking to have a video up tomorrow, or by tomorrow night, I should say. And then we'll try to get one more before Masters Madrid as well. Kind of debating what we want to do for this week. There's a couple of topics that I'm thinking of, but we'll see how it goes. That's going to be it for today, though. Thanks so much for those who dropped by. Thanks for all the new follows on both channels, all platforms. And I will see you all on Wednesday when Challengers Korea kicks off again. So I'll see you then.